We are live, sir.
Hello. Hey.
Hello there.
All right. That only took an hour to get up and going.
Absolutely.
For all you at home, you don't realize, even when you just do silly live streams, it takes an hour pre-production meeting.
If you're really good. I mean, this usually takes 5 hours.
Well, I think it did from the time we talked yesterday all the way till today. So I finally got a window of opportunity after a long day yesterday and today. So got some time to live stream with my dog in my lap. I'm ready to go. I got a pen. I got some paper.
You're going old school utensils.
Just in case you go off into a long rant, I'm ready to take notes while you're ranting.
No, I'm not sick today. I have lingering after effects. But I was so high on cough syrup, I was basically punch drunk, and I have leftover pieces of cough medicine and everything else. But I'm good to go today.
All right. Well, when you share that, make sure that you hashtag high on cough syrup so people can understand what was going on in that broadcast. And I'm gonna have to hashtag this pup in my lap. Pup in my lap, headache in my head, after argument with my wife broadcast number 2 for, what is this, August 2018.
Well, I was privy to some of that. In fact, anyone who watched the video was privy to some of my introduction to the missus. And I'm just guessing, I don't think she took quite a liking to me.
Well, I don't know what. I wish I could explain what is going on. I have no idea. But I got in the shower, and she got on the phone. She texted you. A fight ensued. Then I had to walk my dog outside and act like everything was normal with the neighbors. And then I came back. I drove her to the ferry. She's now in New York. I'm home alone. I can be as loud as I like because she's loud every day, but she doesn't like when I'm loud. I'm live streaming, so I'm free. I'm free to be as crazy and nutty as I can be under the conditions of my headache and a dog in my lap who I don't know how she's going to react to my craziness. So,
on that, first of all, it wasn't a fight because a fight requires 2 people involved. The other thing was my only worry and concern about that interaction is that people usually don't start hating me until after they meet me in person, and I haven't had the opportunity to meet her yet, so I look forward to that, and then to give her the opportunity to sort of not get so ahead of herself.
I don't know. I just got to keep everything separate. That's why I told you, though. I told you honestly, people don't get it, but you can't. It's a weird thing, and maybe because I did stand up, and you're alone on stand up, and nobody's affecting you on stand up. But it's a weird dynamic when other people are in the house, and then that even affects. You talked about your quantum physics cough syrup rant about, little things affect you. People being on camera affects their behavior. Other people being in the room affects their behavior. Having a dog in your lap affects your behavior. When you do stand up, everything affects your behavior. So I was thinking, one of the things I'm thinking about is people don't realize when you're an athlete, professional athlete, an actor, someone on TV. I mean, all the stuff that's going on that you have no idea about. And I wish, like I said, I could tell you everything that's going on. But be able to perform with all that stuff still going on, sometimes does require alcohol, drugs, meditation, whatever it is that's going to get steroids, whatever's going to get you through that initial So I'm broadcasting without. I would love to have some painkillers right now because I have a headache, but I'm going without the painkillers. But I actually stopped in. She doesn't even know. I did stand up for the first time in when I happened to pass by a comedy night, and I walked in and I did a set, and it was terrible. I was like,
"This is huge. You can't just say this lightly." I mean, wow.
Yeah. So, but it was terrible. It was all old stuff, and I wasn't prepared. I didn't do. The only new line that I did was, which isn't even a line, but I said, the Trump is just out of, the things he said to get to prior to winning. When he said I don't think I said this already on the broadcast, but he said the Mexican people are bringing drug dealers and rapists, and I think some people are good people. And I said, yeah, and you could say the same thing about vaginas. And I when I said that line, like I went into another old joke, but I think people were just like what? Like I looked around, people were like, what was that? So like if you don't say it right, or if it catches them off guard, it's weird. But the whole thing was weird because I just jumped on stage, and it was a weird afternoon open mic that I just happened to run into, like that I saw, and I just pulled over and I just jumped on stage, and I didn't really feel good about it. I didn't feel like I don't know. I'd have to write a lot of material, and I'd have to start all over again. So,
well, I mean, did you go cold, or did you sort of, at least prepare, or was
I
this
was totally
completely spontaneous?
cold, completely cold, like so cold,
That's
like
cool.
ridiculously cold. Yeah. I would do it again. We'll see you down the road. I mean, but I'm not looking forward to going back to stand up. I mean, it takes so much work. You got to be on stage every night. There's no way. I mean, going back, you realize there's just no way. It's just to start all over again would be crazy. But I did jump on stage, and it didn't. It felt icky. Didn't feel right. So I much prefer to do live streams. So this is where I am for now. It's much easier to do.
Well, welcome back. We are glad to have you back after your return to comedy. I put on screen. Ryan Reynolds is remaking Home Alone as an R-rated stoner flick.
No way.
Yeah, so it's on screen now.
It's got to be a joke. It's got to be a prank.
It's a real legit thing. It's making all the rounds, Maxim and everything else. Seth Rogen isn't involved in it, but he wants to call it Stoned Alone. Stoned Alone, and it's he's coming off of Deadpool 2, and it's currently in development at Fox, with Reynolds attached as a producer and rising filmmaker. Now, the plot, if I recall, is going to be about a stoner guy who thinks he's high, who is high, and someone's trying to break into his house, but he thinks it's all in his head.
Right.
So it's going to be an adult version of that. So anyway, that is that, sir.
I like it. They've done some good stuff. I think, and again, they try to do really different. I like it because they're always trying to do different, out of the box kind of stuff. So if it gets the green light and he does it, it sounds good. But yes, I'm home alone, but I'm not stoned. I wish I was stoned. I wish I just had simple Advil. That would be good. But I'm just home with my rock star and.
Well, before we get into today's activities, sort of building an audience, as they say, on that, they're also, you've probably seen some trailers on this. You don't really watch any TV. I don't either, but I watch like Netflix and stuff. But they're doing like an R-rated version of the Muppets. And have you seen those commercials? It seems like it's actually funny, but I believe it was in limbo for a while. Because the Henson Company, I think they sued them and said this sort of, puts a negative slant on our thing. So I was surprised to see the trailers making the rounds. So I guess they got through that. But it looks sort of funny. It looks really funny. It's in the vein of that animated thing that Seth Rogen did with Franco and all of them.
It's called Murder. Something Murder. What is it called? What's the title? Give it a little plug action.
The plug is, let me see if I can bring it up here. If you're on Facebook, you can see, but it's the Adult Muppets movie, basically. I'm looking it up now, and yeah, here it is. Muppets get raunchy in the first not safe for work trailer for the Happy Time Murders.
Oh shoot! I pulled you up on Facebook, and now I'm going to have a double.
Well, you can turn it out. I'm going to play the just a snippet of the trailer, the official. But it's not a little tiny movie. It has what's her name?
McCarthy.
Yeah. So I mean, she's definitely a big comedic name. Let me see if I can play a little bit of the trailer, and then we'll get into some serious business. And I'll play that, just a snippet now. Hold on one moment.
Well, What's happening? What is happening? Now it's loading.
I love seeing
God.
Hi, folks.
Should have tested this in the. There you go.
50 cents.
Yeah, I can't hear it
Your
at all,
dick.
on your side or my side.
Well, it's a great price. It almost makes me wish I had a dick for you to suck.
Oh, I'll take that.
I think only you can hear it right now.
You two are the most decorated officers in this department. What do you say?
Yeah, I can see it. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Rubber
Because
gone
I can't.
on to me.
Yeah, I can't
This
hear it.
wasn't a robbery, this was a hit.
What the?
Someone out there is killing puppets.
Hey, handsome. You looking for some rotten cotton?
I'm a woman.
Yeah, I can see it. Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's okay.
That's even
Got
better.
a good time for you.
We're gonna catch the bastards who did these murders. Because bodies are gonna start piling up.
You're one of the best damn cops I've ever seen.
I'll have your badge for this. I'm in the fucking FBI.
Oh yeah, what's that stand for? Fucking big idiot?
Good cop, where is your dignity? Where's your empathy? Where is your sympathy? Bad cop.
If shit gets crazy, I'm gonna go crazy as shit.
Is that just a fantasy?
God, are you all right?
I ruptured my hymen.
This pure ecstasy.
I'm not doing this.
Do it.
Oh, sorry about your dead human friend, Phillips.
That is good shit.
Well, fuck me.
Maybe.
Is Phil in?
He's servicing a client.
Is that what I think it is?
Here I go. Here I go. Here I go. Here I go.
Okay, that is that. It reminds me of Crank Yankers, like a dirty version of Crank Yankers back in the day.
Avenue Q.
Avenue Q. All right, sir. Let's talk some.
Let's talk some. I don't even know where to start. Yeah, so as I was getting paper and pen for this broadcast, I wanted to get a notebook just in case if you did talk. Maybe I can even text you on Facebook if I have to try to interrupt you while you're talking. But I found an old journal, my first journal that I my first journal that I ever started to keep. I think it was my fifth or sixth grade. So sixth grade, we had to keep a journal for school, and we had to give it to our teacher every day. So you wrote something in your journal, and then you gave it to your teacher, and she would write notes on it, and then she would give it back to you. So my first journal writing, September 15th, 1977, I wrote, "I don't like taking instruments." That seems very vague, but I think I'm talking about musical instruments. And then it goes, "I like sports, soccer, baseball, football. I have played recreational soccer, baseball, and football." She's fixing my grammar. "My family said I'm the only one in the family who likes baseball, but my favorite game is soccer. I'm joining a league. We had tryouts yesterday. I don't think they'll cut anybody because they don't have enough players." And then she wrote, "Good luck. Hope you make it." Now, why would I bring that up? Well, because I want to let people know this grade 6 is where I truly have evidence where I began to lie and be a fake, phony person. Because later on in my journals, as I told her that my sports was getting involved or interrupting my schoolwork, and she would write, "See me," in big letters, and I would have to go talk to her about, how my sports was affecting my schoolwork. And I was like, oh, so this was, she thought, okay, this was going to be a way to find out what was going on in someone's life, and then she could, step in, because she wouldn't be able to talk to everybody on a regular basis. So it was about October, that at the end of October, that I realized, oh, I have to lie when I write in this journal. So I have to just make up events and be very careful about what information. So if anybody, it continued to happen. I see it happen again in further months where she was like, see me, I don't even know. But there was a lot of seeing me, so I really didn't even get that smart about being a good liar. I was like revealing too much of myself, even in my little journals. So that's when grade 6, and I'm sure you start to lie even earlier, but grade 6 journal writing, and I was like, oh, you have to lie. You can't tell the truth. You can't tell people what's going on in your life.
This is before you became a minotaur or a centaur, or looking like Kenny Loggins, or
David Letterman.
This beard, the king of clubs. This is before you developed into your current look. You, as a little kid, you're sort of seeing this as a breadcrumb to. Are you saying that now you feel like so much of you in your current state is a state of lying just to survive in this sort of modern life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just non-stop lying. And I mean, I feel like the better actor you are, the better liar you are, or even maybe the better you are compartmentalizing, as they used to say about Clinton and different. Just think about like Barack Obama and, just different people who have like unbelievable jobs. There's all this stuff coming in, plus raising their daughters or, dealing with their wife. I mean, you really have to have, not only do you have to have just amazing talent, you have to have your life in order. I mean, you can't have your life out of order. And like I said, that's grade 6. I'm one of 5, Irish Catholic family. So imagine the lying. Like I told you, and you were saying no, because we were having a disagreement about hormones. I said from like 12 to 13, it really, I forget what we were talking about, but I told you it was hormones that started to like control my life. But right around here, that's when I started to lie. And then right around here is when I started to realize the rest of the world was kind of a big lie. I was living what I thought was a big lie, which is religion. And I was like, oh my God, I started to realize, wow, this stuff is crazy. I gotta control this or get out of this, or this is all of a sudden.
But that's a different type of lie, though, right? I mean, there's those lies that you actually believe, and so they're not classical lies in terms of like Facebook lies. Like Facebook is largely a gigantic lie, but even then, there are groups of people who actually believe what they've been trained, and then there's others who try to hide the truth in sort of like a legitimate lie, that they're constantly happy and traveling all over the world and everything's peachy. So when you talk about lying as a kid and lying sort of now, however you mean that, how do you define what type of lie you're sort of engaging in right now?
I'm trying to think of what am I not saying? Well, we didn't go over the full blowout of what happened with me and my wife. I mean, that was something that was just completely going to send me off the rails. I told her, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do the same broadcast now because that's in my head. It's going to come out when I do the broadcast. I mean, we could pretend that it doesn't, but to me, then I'm lying to everybody about like what's happening. I'm going through a whole thing with the DMV trying to get my car registered, which is taking days upon days, and it's been like, dude, it's just been the craziest thing about like such a cliche about the DMV, but and again, you have to act all polite and nice. You have to control yourself. But I'm going to give you me coming from New Jersey to New York. I felt like maybe I'm like one of the earlier settlers, like one of the first people who've decided to make that cross the river over to New York, and I need to certify my horse. Is there any way I could talk to someone and get this done? Do I have to talk to the sheriff, the courthouse? I'm at the DMV. And after 3 days of talking to PNC, which is who owns my car right now, I need permission from PNC to register my car in New York because they own my car. So I need them to say, yes, you go ahead. You go ahead and register that car, son. You okay. You're good. and I have to. But the thing is, they had to. The way they were going to do this is they were going to fax the title to the DMV, but the DMV doesn't hold on to the fax; they'll throw it away. But first of all, we're talking fax. I'm like, seriously, fax? They can't just email it in some way? Is there a better way?
Yeah.
So at some point, after phone call, going back and talking to everybody, like very nicely, can I just, I'm like breaking lines. I'm like jumping, talking to supervisors. I finally call PNC. They say, drive over to the nearest PNC in New Jersey. We'll just give you a copy. That seems like practical. I go there. They're like, no, we can't do that. So
don't you hate that? I mean, people don't have the same shared information, and you realize the chaos of that organization.
Right. And so then I'm handwriting, like on a piece of paper like this, I'm handwriting a letter to Dear PNC, I'm one of the earliest settlers coming here from New Jersey. I'd like to register my horse, and I'm wondering if you'd have the kindness to send me my horse registration so I'm
Sheriff Captain John P. Coltrane. I don't know.
So they take my letter and they fax it. Now, I have no way to know whether this fax has been received and that my copy of my title is on my way. So I called again Saturday. They're like, oh, you'll have to call back Monday. So the system, again, we've talked about this. I mean, you were talking about, like, when we were doing the pre-production, you're like, it's so futuristic. It's so, things are becoming so futuristic. And you're talking about Facebook and broadcasting. I just spent, and I know it's cliche to talk about DMV, but I'm talking about just the way we still we're transferring information through fax, and people don't have their acts together, and they're not communicating. Like the two people, the DMV and the PNC, there's no way I could get them to communicate with each other and make any sense. Now, to be honest, Geico was very good. I had to switch my insurance. They switched it quickly over to New York, and they faxed me. Oh, excuse me, guys. See, I'm in the fax world. And they telegraphed me, and I done telegraph. They emailed me.
You need to wait for your Pony Express, boy.
Well, the stagecoach will be pulling up with my. So they emailed me a document that I could scan at the DMV. So they had their act together as far as a scannable. Life insurance. God, I knew life insurance.
Well,
a scannable car insurance.
They've been on alert. They've been on alert ever since they found out that the British were coming.
That's what's going on. It's just like, what do I have to do? So you almost have to get into character so that you can maintain your, because everybody else is like, at the DMV, people are cursing out loud. People are losing their phones, their wallets. I was there like 2 hours waiting for this fax to come through. I'm sitting there waiting for this fax to come through. Like it's going to come through. Like it's going to work like this. People are losing their phones. They're going crazy. I'm finding phones. A girl's crying. She's lost her wallet. People are cursing at each other. The supervisor. I'm just like, so it's your typical DMV. But on top of that, I'm walking back and forth like, hello, ma'am.
Now, but see, that's an example of you, lying. Isn't that an example of you needing to lie?
Yeah, because I'm just like,
just get through life.
When I got to PNC, I was really like, and I still was like friendly. We were making jokes because I'm thinking, because I'm always thinking, this is all material. For a comedian, this is all material. So we're working on the curfew line. Maybe next PNC will give me a curfew till I get the title. They'll say, hey, don't drive that car past 10, till we get that. So, that's, if there's lying that goes on, and that's, imagine people who have 4 or 5 kids, imagine people running a business, imagine, I guess, the emotional intelligence you have to have in order to, maintain your composure, so that's what I mean. And it's a constant struggle when you deal with just, I'm trying to be careful. When I'm thinking about my job, I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about all the ways you sort of have to be careful. And I would much rather be stoned and go through this life high and use some sort of alcohol or, use something that gets you to be able to, and you wonder why people are under stress. You wonder why people end up getting Alzheimer's or, as I was watching this whole thing on PBS the other day about how, stress gives you Alzheimer's. So I'm always thinking about that because my dad got Alzheimer's. So I'm always like, oh God, I've got to limit the stress, but there's no way. There's no way. I feel like I'm the earliest, like I said, I feel like I'm the earliest. I'm like one of the first people who have come. It felt like, come on, I'm moving from New Jersey to Staten Island. How many people move from New Jersey to New York and go through this can't get the title from their loan company. It's got to be, how many people are we talking a day that are going through this, this, when PNC didn't go, we need to change the system. This doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem like a good system here. Well, I don't know.
I mean, but when you think about that, you sort of get into politicians and, just any interaction, whether you mention like jobs and work and everything else. I mean, the commoners, us commoners, hold politicians to the fire for not being authentic and not being real. And then we applaud people like, Bernie Sanders for just putting it out there. And yet are we holding them to a higher standard, of being less dishonest as we are on a daily basis to whatever degree? And if so, is that good or bad? I mean, isn't that sort of what they signed up for, to be more honest because they're politicians? Or regardless of whatever their title is, do they have the same sort of right just to sort of get through the day, just to sort of get through the media, just to sort of get through their job, because they're dealing with humans? And so we all have the same sort of reactions. So what should we do? How should we sort of negotiate that big challenge between being real, being authentic, and trying to get stuff done?
And I know you hate to bring, but I know you don't like when I go this angle, but it sits in my head. It's Trump, as much as he is a jerk, I think people find him authentic, or they find him real, or they at least say he's being pretty damn honest. Like when he goes off on his Twitter rants that seem to be crazy, people go, yeah, I could relate to that. I could see myself if I was the president of the United States, or if I had my own company and I didn't have to, what they call FU money, and I could say whatever I want. Yeah, I might go off and just say stuff that he does, or so I sort of get the attraction of Trump and I think a large majority of Americans like what he does, likes the way he handles himself. Now, I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying a lot of people, I think, who are on a lot more stress, wish they could lash out. They like when he lashes out. They get off on it. They think it's funny. They think it's, I wish I could do that. I think it's, it's, I don't know if it's the culture across the board, but I think more and more people wish. Like you said, there's Facebook world where everybody acts like, everything is great in my life. And then there's this other world where people are just lashing out each other on Facebook, like Twitter wars. Like you said, all these different, so it's all these two different worlds. And I try to stay out of all, and then most people try to stay out of all of it, right? The smart person would say, you know what? I'm staying out of all of this. Like, I'm just going to go to my job, keep my job, and come back home and watch my TV and play with my dog, not getting involved. I refuse to get involved. And who am I to say, no, you should get involved?
Well, I feel some people, going back to your honest thing, I'm looking at an article from Political Magazine. This is 2017 sometime, and it's titled, "Trump is America's most honest president. He just can't help himself from blurting out the truth, even when it's self-sabotage." But that's May 2017, right? Right below this is something from The Hill, which was May 17th, not too long ago. And it says, it's a poll. It says just 13% of Americans consider Trump honest and trustworthy. Now, there's a lot of different ways to read this, right? And who are you polling? This is when you got to get down into the details. And it sort of speaks to what is truth. I can guarantee you, if you go to his representative group, his core group of supporters, the vast majority, if not all of them, are going to say he's very honest and he's very trustworthy. And I think you would even get the same sort of numbers from non-Republicans and non-conservatives if you phrase the question differently. If you ask them, like, do you think Trump believes what he says? Or do you think Trump he speaks freely, he speaks his mind? I think you're going to say people are going to be like, oh, yeah, absolutely, right? So I think how you phrase a question to a progressive or to a Democrat or someone on the left will generate a different answer, even if it means sort of the same thing. And that sort of gets to the problem with polls and statistics and all that sort of thing that, everybody deals with. How you phrase a question will generate different answers, and who you answer and who you call is going to be, like these people on the phone who answer and they say, we did a telephone poll. Yeah, but what type of person even answers their phone anymore? What type of person talks to a person? There's a group of people who won't even do a poll on a telephone, or even, first of all, they don't have a landline. That sort of speaks to a skewed result, no matter how objective you think your poll is.
Oh, your audio just went out. Wait.
No, are you listening live, or are you on Facebook?
It went out for a second. No, it's cutting out. I'm not listening on Facebook.
You
keep cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were cutting out there for a second.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So I wish I just jotted notes down because, first of all, you don't know if the person on the phone is answering authentically, right? Because they could be lying when they're asked a question, right? So that's number one. Number two, we don't know what publication, who they're really calling, and if they have an agenda, to skew the results. We don't know what's the, I don't know what would be the right word, but what's the legitimacy of the phone calling and who their sample is.
Right.
So there's a lot involved, but what we do know is through the course of the election, when we were involved in the movement, we knew that he had touched a nerve and that people did like the way he was talking and that it was going to be close. And I still believe they still like what he does. And we've talked about it for the entertainment. Whether you think he's lying or authentic, they like his style of whatever that style, whatever you're going to term that style to be. If it's machismo, bravado, stupido, whatever you think Trump is, he still has a style that speaks to a large enough audience that will win him the election again in 2020. Now, again, we got all these elections coming up, and we're going to, in November, and we're going to see if there's any sort of. There was supposedly there was a Netroots Nation. Conference. So you would know. See, and it was funny because we didn't get a chance to talk about this at all. So again, I'm out of this world, but out of the world of whatever you call what the world we used to be in. But with Netroots Nation, I don't know exactly what the conference is about, who attended, but supposedly again, there's still the butting of the heads between two different types of Democrats. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that there is a real issue since, and I don't know. I'm sure everybody feels the same way, but no one talks about it. I'm sure everybody feels this dilemma of being able to tell the truth or not. It's just whether they've trained themselves well enough to where it's no longer an issue, right? Where they just decided, like my dad just totally didn't talk. My dad did not talk. Like, he barely spoke. And I sometimes wonder, did he just at some point go, oh, I know how I do. I know how I do this. I just don't speak. Then nothing can be misinterpreted. Nobody can read what I'm saying. No one can use anything against me. So if I completely don't speak, because it was weird. My dad was like really, really happy when he would leave for work in the morning. He'd always get dressed. He had his grill cream on or whatever. He had his Old Spice going. Seemed happy. Woke us up. When he came home, he was miserable, and then he was quiet, and then he didn't talk. And I was like, okay, so maybe he just spent all his energy being phony, and he had like no. He had, it was like he was on his last nerve, and he was just okay. I'm gonna read my paper in my chair, like I nod off to sleep, and that's gonna be it for me. He did talk. I'm not saying he didn't have a range of emotions. He was quiet, and he did get upset from time to time. But the way he operated was when he came home was to keep his mouth shut, but he also looked. And again, me and my dad, similar facial features. He did look fairly angry all the time. Like if you looked at him, you weren't sure. Maybe he'd haul off and smash you. You know what I'm saying? You weren't sure, or he's going to get mad at you and something. Like he didn't look thrilled most of the time. You know, like I said, the only time I remember him happy was when he was leaving for work in the morning. That's the memories that I have of him being happy the most. So, you know, again, you can only glean what you have the most information from. You know, like if I go back to my wife, she's very, very out there and very honest all the time. And maybe I called her into my life. Maybe I wanted somebody who was really self-aware and really honest and be careful what you wish for, kind of a thing. You know, I don't know what I summoned into my life, but I just think most people have learned the art of, I don't know what the art is. And I don't know what the right word is to call that. Is it emotional? It's because people are all just emotional intelligence. You know, they're able to handle situations, and I'm all right, I'm fine, but still it's kind of phony. It's kind of dishonest. It's not truthful. You're not really being authentic. But that's the way you have to be in order to get through society. Though I don't know what I should have done at the DMV. I mean, I could have charged out of there, or I could have got mad. This PNC, this is ridiculous. How can this be the system? How can this be your system? How come I can't get this title today? And maybe they would have been like, oh, Mr. Stueck, we'll get you the title right away. Let me call somebody. I don't know if I had gone that way, the title would have been poof. Oh, here's your title, sir. We just got it off the stagecoach. We just got Tamian Pigeon Carrier. So I don't know.
I mean, my father was like your father, but I think a lot of fathers are like that. And we'd have to do some sort of poll and talk to married couples, standard couples, people who are unmarried or whatever, and see if there's a sort of retreat, right? Because after my father passed away in like 2008, I did this story about him at what was called Speakeasy DC at the time, and you have like 7 minutes to talk about whatever story, and it's different than from you getting on stage and doing your comedy routine, because you're not allowed to do comedy routines, you're not allowed to do speeches or poetry.
And I did hear you did send that to me, and I did listen to it, so I am aware of what you did.
Oh, okay. So which is great. And so I did this story, and you remember the whole story was sort of about him coming home, being forced to come home after I had this whole party, and cops came, and it became this whole big thing. And he ultimately.
But you have to, if you don't mind me putting in some pieces there. You were on a military base, and your dad
correct.
Working for the military at the time, so that's an important piece to the story.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually even play a piece, but I won't. And so, I just want to get through the story quickly, and maybe I'll link to it. But he basically came home after this vacation with my mom, and it was interrupted, and I was thinking he was going to be furious, but he, in his Clint Eastwood, another one of the characters that you're often referred to, he had that quiet strength and silent reserve, even though he was a great speaker and outgoing and all these things, and he just sort of was like, "Are you okay?" And I got so much more from this quiet time and these few words, knowing that he was more concerned about me than if he went through this whole long speech. And I just wonder, being a, bachelor whore that I am, I have I'm terrified of like marriage and things like that. I've ranted against it many, many times, but not for reasons that people think I do. Because I actually have such a high standard of marriage, in the same way that I think like a Clooney does, where he finally found this, older woman in comparison, who's brilliant and intelligent and saving the world and is established career. So I think I have an actual higher standard than the average person who always has in the back of their mind, I can just get a divorce, right? For me, if I get married, I sort of want to be sure that there's no exit, right? But when you go to Psychology Today, which I'm putting here briefly, it talks about some reasons why guys go quiet. 5 reasons man goes silent, what to do about it. Number 1, it says, man ain't supposed to talk. And I won't read it, but it says, number 2, we feel we cannot win. Number 3, we get angry. Number 4, it pains us to argue with you. Number 5, history drives us. And then it talks about breaking the pattern. For 5 reasons, men go silent. And they maybe I'll just include the link, but they say the best way to break this pattern is to 1, define the problem, 2, focus on the pattern, not the person, 3, interrupt the pattern as early as possible, 4, be patient and willing to practice, and that is it. So,
all right. So I don't know how you want me to. I have 4 directions I can go, and I can cover them all. But so I'll give you these 4. This is like one of those books that you read when you're a kid. Which direction do you want to go? Okay. I know just different things about being authentic. So I have 3 ways you can go. Doing impressions is 1. Marriage, contract, my dad, or how do I handle arguments or communication issues with a spouse. So you can choose which way you want me to go, or I can just start from the very beginning, from the top, from the first note that I made.
Well, let's you start and let's see how it goes.
All right. I'm going to go with the funny first because the rest is going to be. So I have a problem. This is not related to this topic. Just so you know, because you brought up Clint Eastwood, but I have a problem as a comedian, and this can get you in a lot of trouble. Is I sometimes can pick up other people's dialects like quickly, so I have a habit of talking back to them in their dialect, which is completely wrong. Yeah. But I'll give you an example. Like I have a guy at work. His name is Mr. Wong, and when he says, "Hello, Mr. Stueck," I say, "Hello, Mr. Wong. How are you doing, Mr. Wong?" Yeah. And it's like, "Good. It's good to see you, Mr. Wong. I hope you are having a very good day today." And I'm realizing I'm talking. I shouldn't be talking this way to him. So
true story. This happened to me. This happened to me too. Just to support your story before you get deeper into it, I was with my friend. I was actually working at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund in Washington D.C. And this guy comes up from he's from the Middle East or whatever. And that sounds racist right there. He's from the Middle East or whatever. One of them places.
Not important to the story.
Not important to the story, but one of them over there's racist. So, and it's a suit. We're wearing suits and everything else. And I'm listening to my buddy talk to this guy, and he was just scheduling something with us, and he was like, "Okay, then I want to go and I'll meet with you, and we can do this on Monday." And my friend, my buddy, he was like, "Oh yeah, we can do this on Monday." And I went, "Oh!" But what was funny was that the guy didn't hear it, and neither did my friend. And so after the guy left, I went back to my friend, and I was like, "Do you realize you were saying, like, Monday? Monday?" He was like, "No." So he didn't do it intentionally. And if I remember right, I started researching this, and it was sort of a form of mirroring, like unintentional mirroring, which was like a positive trait, but had sort of unintended negative consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. Like, but I don't. Maybe I have to. When someone talks in a dialect that I think I can pick up, I should just start talking like Clint Eastwood, like, oh, okay. It's a very interesting accent you have. I have to go into Clint Eastwood to prevent myself from, I don't know if you said 5 vowels or only 6. Like, I have to do something to prevent that because I can't do my wife's. My wife is Trini, and I can't. And if you try to do a Trini accent, they make fun of you for trying because they think that you don't sound like it at all. So there's some people who can catch you doing it, and they'll get mad at you for trying to do it. So it's never happened, but I know there are times that it does happen. And again, I know I'm like doing it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't stop myself from talking in this accent. And then, how do you explain that away? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a comedian. And sometimes I hear voices and I have to try to repeat them that I know I shouldn't, so again, it's just a lack of control. So anyway, so going back to how do I handle, I literally decide, well, first of all, I'm lucky that I have a dog, because like if you ever have an argument with your wife, you can just go for a walk with your dog. And that's good. That'll recenter you. But I literally, because I have a bad shoulder.
Well, I had to do that once, and it was the same object.
Because you were married to your dog?
No, I was saying I was with someone who maybe wasn't as attractive as I had.
Aw, that's sexist and mean. Now you're going to get progressives.
I did that on purpose.
So I recently, I think last year, I joined Planet Fitness just so I could, not because I wanted to go work out there, just so I had a place to go to calm down. I literally spent $100 on Planet Fitness, and they thought, oh, he's coming to work out. No, I came just to like go there and sit and just like, so I didn't have to bring the dog with me or anything.
Well, don't you think most of their income is people signing up for fitness and going, I'm done? And don't you think at least 80% is people who never really come back, and they start maybe a couple of months. I
don't know what percentage, or I'm signing up purely to have a place other than a bar. Like, I totally get why bars are so, because people can't handle it. They go to a bar and they drink, right? Yeah. They get in a fight and they say, oh, now I can go. You've given me permission to go and drink at the bar because you were mean to me. So instead, I go and I sit. I never win. I never had to use the Planet Fitness excuse to calm down. But it's why I joined Planet Fitness. Yeah. Now, back to marriage. You bring up marriage and the marriage contract. We'll be here all day. Yeah. And none of it will be good. None of it will be good because I am completely different. I think the marriage contract is ridiculous. I think if you get married, it's ridiculous. I don't understand I also you have to understand, I guess I have to use half disclosure. I've been through one divorce, and I was naive when I got married, and when you find out the divorce laws and what you have to do and what you have to admit to get out early, pretty much my record has been tarnished for the rest of my life because I said, all right, I'll take that way out. I'll admit to all that. If you can get me out of this relationship within a couple months, I confess to whatever you want me to confess to. And I don't even know if I'm legally allowed to say that. I could be like damning myself right now on this video. But, but the laws of marriage and the contract of marriage, people need to. You better go wherever you get married. I suggest you research the divorce laws before you get married in that particular state, because every state's going to be different. I also don't believe in the contract. It's for both sides. It can be a very bad contract.
Yeah. Well, on that, I did a video on this. It always sounds like self-promotion, but I did this video on Valentine's. I was with, and I think you met Becca at least on the phone or something, or even in a video. And so I was with Becca, and I did this video. I called it Blue Valentine because it was I believe around Valentine's, but it was sort of like a play in words. But there's that movie Blue Valentine, which stars, I can't think of his name, but one of the hunks of the day, and that great actress Michelle, Ryan, whatever the guy who was in Blade Runner. But the movie, I love this movie, and the movie's really dark and depressing, but it was so brilliantly acted. And it was basically about the end of a relationship. but the relationship began with such beauty, and sort of this wonderful. It wasn't a comedy at all, but this movie came out in Blue in 2010. But really good movie, extremely well acted. I'm looking at it now. Michelle Williams, Ryan Gosling, yeah. And so I did this video ranting about the marriage contract, and I had come up with this brilliant idea, brilliant in quotes, that you should get married on a contract that you have to re-up, because you have to sign up for Netflix when your thing expires. You have to, monthly or every 3 months, you have to sign up for cable phone. I mean, so why would you sign up for something else and be sort of beholden to that for your entire life? This is something where you go, hey, and I said maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever you two agree on, but you both say at the end of this period, if you both do not agree to sign up for another,
that's genius. That's called the marriage subscription. Great,
yeah.
So no longer will it be a marriage contract; it's a marriage subscription, and that's a much better way to go. Except if there are any underlying cancellation fees, I would be worried about that. If there's a cancellation fee,
well, that's included in the prenup.
Prior to the re-upping of the subscription, if you try to get out earlier,
that's all covered in the contract. If you are smart enough and progressive enough to come up with these contracts in advance, well, then you're going to make sure that after you two expire, because how this works is that you don't both agree to expire. The contract expires, period. After that 3 months or 6 months. The only way it will continue is if prior to that you both re-up. So this marriage will end. 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever you two define in advance, it will absolutely end. It's not a debate. But you can prior to that go, you know what, I don't want it to end, and you both re-up, right? I think that's brilliant because you don't have to have that discussion. You both say, hey, it didn't quite work out, or I want to flex my wings. To me, it gets rid of all the desires to cheat and everything else, because you're more likely to go, you know what, we're going through a rough patch, but I will fight for this because I only have 3 months to go or 6 months to go or a year to go. I'm willing to invest in fighting for this to make it work. And if it doesn't, well, then the marriage is going to end and we won't have to re-up. So,
and my belief on that is if we shared this video and we got women's up, I just talked. I know what it is. I'm looking at you. You know what's happening to me? So when you stop talking, I'm looking over here and you're still talking on Facebook, and I think the audio went out. So the audio's never going out.
Oh, gotcha.
Anyway,
gotcha.
So I think women would be completely against the subscription model. I think they would think it's sexist. I think they would think it's, they would somehow say this is not a good system or setup or whatever. It's not good for women, I guess. I would say they would be against it. I don't think too many women are going to go for the subscription-based marriage.
Well,
but
this is why I did the video, which was because Becca was right there with me. She was on the same page, and there was actually a discussion on Facebook where, of course, it was a mixed bag, where there were people who were adamantly against it, and then there were people who were like, do whatever you want to do. Different things work for different people. Some people are swinging, open relationships. And then there were other people who were like, right on. This is something that I always wanted to do. People were saying, I wish we could live in separate houses for space. I wish we didn't necessarily have joint bank accounts. So I don't believe this, let me just say the classical definition of marriage is really shared by a lot of people. I think it's something that's sort of shared by an automatic group, but you'd be surprised because most young people now, right? They're not even getting married at all, or they're delaying marriage. So it sort of speaks to this undercurrent of what you were supposed to always do versus what people are choosing now to do.
Well, and the two things I would say to you is when you have a stance. So my stance was always against marriage and kids, and that was just my personal choice. I knew that I wouldn't be good at marriage, or I had no strong desire to have kids. Now, when you say that, I would say two of the things that people will throw back at you. One is they will say, you haven't found the right one yet.
Yeah.
You just haven't found the right one yet. I'm like, no, there's no problem with the right one. It's and again, it's a cliche and it's a joke. I'm the problem. It's the joke is, it's not you, it's me, kind of a thing, right? That's the joke. So, and the other one they would say to you is, you need to grow up. So, and when I say, so I have a kid. So when I say I don't want kids, I mean my own kid. I don't want to have my own kid because I never wanted to put half my brain in another kid's body. So that was why I said, so I would be willing to adopt. But again, I'm not a big proponent of marriage, and I would suggest that people be careful out there. If you're going to get married, know the laws before you get married. Now I'm married now, and it takes a lot of work. And I would say to you, you can get all the space you want, and you're still going to need more space. So you're just gonna want a bigger house and a bigger place and more space, because that's what we got more space. Like I said, we got more space, and we still need more space. I still have to wait till my wife takes a ferry to New York before I can do a broadcast. So
I don't think,
but I would.
Ferry's politically correct.
Oh, you're so bad. You're so bad with your bad jokes. But
I try. Well, let me read you some of the comments under Blue Valentine. On Facebook now. This was posted on February 14th, 2017. And actually, I shared these comments are under my timeline. But yeah, there's a lot of conversation. A lot of conversation. Let me just read some random ones. Here's one that says, this is from Becca herself, who appeared in the video. She says, it's inherently different to go into, and of course these are women speaking. I'm going to read women's voices because they're not a monolith, right? So she says, it's inherently different to go into an agreement with an end date than it is to sign up for till death to us part. Hopefully some people will see that. Arietta Miller, she says, I don't want to be like Mike. I see the wisdom. They're doing plays on C. These are two women. Now, Colleen was adamantly against this, and she goes off on an entire thing about, listen, maybe your idea just has more holes than Swiss cheese, and it seemed like you put it out for critique and or comment, and so on, so on, so on, and so forth. But you got to keep in mind, it's surprising that she was saying this because her history has been dating, divorced, single mother now with kids, sociopaths up and down her background, all things she openly discusses. And so to me, it seemed not like someone who was ever in this happy marriage, but someone who held on so strongly to that idea of marriage and the classical, romantic, traditional sense, that even though her experience supports this sort of contract, she was adamantly against it. Because to give up that idea would mean sort of, I think, she chose wrong, or all those years of pain were a struggle that she didn't need to experience, right? So, but I couldn't quite figure out why she was so against it, despite having experienced everything negative in it. I'll read just a couple of more.
Well, because society tells us that's the. I mean, you think about our parents, which is everybody talks about. If you have parents like at our age, in order to move out of their house, they had to get married, right? So a woman wasn't even allowed to go live on her own. She had to get married and then move out and have kids almost immediately. I don't know where we are now as far as, like you said, now kids, I should say, adults, young adults are delaying marriage for many different reasons. But again, there's still a taboo about somebody who doesn't want to be married and doesn't want to have kids. People think it's a bizarre thing. So again, it's more society. But again, the laws are, I don't know what to say. I mean, I would just have you be. The only thing I can say is be aware. Like, don't be. I think more people are waiting longer and more mature. And I didn't even. When I finally got married the first time, I was completely unaware. I just did it. I did it very naively. So that's all I would say to that. I mean, again, it's something that makes me want to be makes me want to lie. It makes me want to say, hey, I don't, let's move on to the next topic. so
yeah, it's funny. I'm looking at this thing. It's saying, fewer people are getting married. 9 reasons why you should get married for yourself and America. Nearly half of Americans think the country's moral values are poor, and almost 3/4 believe conditions are only getting worse, according to a Gallup study. One of the top factors they are concerned about is how more people with and without children are cohabitating or remaining single without exchanging formal vows. And let me see with the 9 reasons it says why people should get married. It's cheaper. The first one is, it's better for the economy. Next one, married couples help their neighborhoods. Next one, married women and their children have better health insurance. Children of married couples grow up in a more stable environment. It makes mothers less stressed.
How is that?
Children of married couples get more opportunities. Number 8, marriage provides better social networks. And 10, the longer couples wait, the less likely they say I do. Now, if you paid any attention to those, none of them have anything to do with intimacy or romance. They're financial, they're tax breaks, they're, hey, improve your neighborhood. You have some that are sort of quasi, you might be happy or maybe, but they all are sort of going into this almost militaristic argument for marriage. And I'm arguing, and I don't even know what I believe today, but I'm arguing to take that out of the equation, take out the business of marriage out of the equation, put in and out, so in these sort of marriage subscriptions, as you call them, and that way the intimacy and the romance and the desire to work together is separate from that job, and you two are working together and one of the comments under the video was, there would be less infidelity. There'll be more desire to work together. There'll be less anxiety, less stress. I think these are horrible reasons. And I'm trying to be objective here, but these are horrible reasons because they don't speak to anything about couplehood. They speak to how difficult it is to live in America. And that shouldn't be the motive, the motivating factor.
Yeah, and the source is U.S. News and World Report, which is, I think, again, you have to question the source, but yeah, it does seem like most of their things are economic, and it's weirdly very old thinking. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who Casey Line's in. I don't know how old he is. Right. I don't know, I don't know where he's getting his information from. I mean, I guess Gallup. He said Gallup poll. What year is that Gallup poll being taken? 1955? How do I know?
Yeah.
But I'll give you a worse reason I'll give you another worse reason why I got married again a second time, because a lot of people are like, why would you do it a second time then if you were so against it? And you can run with this. The second time was because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that guy dyeing his beard, chasing young women.
Funny.
So I had a history of always like dating younger women, and it was getting to the point where like both my hips were popping out of place. You know, I actually was missing teeth on the right side. Now you don't even know this, Curtis. This is like I have no teeth right here. I had a flipper of like a plastic fill-in that I've actually lost. I have no teeth right in here, so like I would have to get that fixed again. And I had like a gap. I had a gap there for a really long time, even when I was still dating like women way beyond my age. And I was like, you know what? It's time to cash in, man.
Well, people don't know. People don't see those things either. You know, people are so worried about, you know, I have a zit and my zipper's down. People don't notice stuff. For better or worse. I mean, that's why, you know, that old joke about guys not seeing when a woman's changes their hair color or their nail color, or being nervous in a meeting. I mean, so many people don't care at all, and they don't see these little details until self-consciously, you're like, oh, I got the zit, and you're like, oh, I see that, right? So the missing teeth and stuff, people will spend thousands to fix these things that people, again, for better or worse, don't notice. It's like New York and the entire world.
But again, my point was I didn't get married because it was like for any of the normal I got married because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be the guy that everybody knows who dyes his beard, trims his beard, tries to dress young, you know, is like creeping on young chicks. I mean, in comedy, you can do that all the time. You can do a really good set, and then, you know, invariably young girls are going to come talk to you no matter what your age is, because they think it's cool that you're a comedian, blah, 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 and you go from there. And I was like, you know what, I got to end all this. I was thinking about stepping out of stand-up. Again, I'm going gray, teeth are falling out of my head, my hips are falling, I'm not going to be able to hold this body together anymore. So I'm like, I'm getting old. It's time to, you know, try to get a partner and figure this stuff out. So, you know, if I had gotten famous, or if it had ever hit, would I have ever gotten married? If I had gotten money, probably not. I probably would have been that guy. I would still look like this, but every year you would be like, oh, there's Stueck. He's dating another 24-year-old, you know. So I pushed my chips in. I said, all right, I'm just going to go all in on this and see how it goes. And I knew what it was. I've never thought that. To me, from my standpoint, it was a good idea. I never thought, and that's just me. Obviously, marriage to many is a great institution, but I never looked at it like it made sense. And then I also, like, again, with kids. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
And even with kids, now I have a stepkid. So, I mean, but I never wanted to put my brain, I just didn't want to put my brain in half my brain in some kid's body. It didn't appeal to me. Now, again, I actually find it a high level of arrogance that someone would want to have a child. Like, to me, that's a crazy notion. Like, you seriously, first of all, whatever your genetic makeup is, so take a good look at yourself in the mirror and where your station is in life. Now you want to produce another one of those people, and you think you have the wherewithal to raise this child to be more successful than you, to be a better person than you. I mean, that's the height of arrogance. I just don't have that type of arrogance or that kind of confidence. I was like, no,
but there's, you know, we have to acknowledge the natural biological sort of impetus that's built in, that desire.
Right, it's built in with women, and even built in with maybe some men who are good guys. But
no, it's not even built into women. It's built into humans, I would say, but with different motivations. But obviously, you know, the desire to procreate is a natural biological impetus, but we don't think like that. We don't walk around going, I must populate the world, right? So we are given the wonderful, beautiful emotion of like a sex drive. It's the same thing with eating. We don't walk around going, I must eat, therefore I must provide fuel to my body. We just get fucking hungry. So our brain and our body knows we're so basic and stupid that we won't do anything. We would just crawl on the ground and die of hunger or non-hunger and burn ourselves and everything else unless we had these feedbacks, these physical impulses for hunger and sex and all these other things that would force us by emotion to do what we sort of need to populate the world and everything else. So it is a natural biological function to want to reproduce, but I think it's sort of intellect that comes in and goes, wait a minute, I want to sort of control my natural urges and go, I don't really need to have another version of me. That is sort of arrogant. That is sort of, and then you got this sort of automatic marriage type thing where people are like, oh, you're born, you go to school, you meet someone, you get married, you have kids. And so that's breaking down that sort of automatic social impulse. But that natural desire is still there. I just think more people are now questioning it, and rightly so.
Well, and I would say the other thing is, like, so I never wanted to have kids. And that was like I knew that from like high school. Like my biggest thing was getting a girl pregnant. Like that was my fear. Like that was my biggest, like, because your life's over, right? I mean, from my perspective, your life's over. My parents would have been like, you're getting married, you're gonna get a real job, you're done, you're finished. So I was definitely, and then with a kid, I was always afraid, like just the pressure of raising that kid. And I say to my kid that like, we'll have Thanksgiving dinner and you'll go around and say, what are you thankful for? And they'll come to me and I'll be like, I'm thankful that my kid's still alive. That's, because I feel like that's the pressure. Like your job is keeping that kid alive, doing everything you can to make sure like they understand, like you don't understand my job. All society knows is I have to keep you alive. I got to feed you. I got to get you to college. I got to get you to graduate. I got to get you a regular job, So like things that I would panic about happened. We went out running when I first, my kid, she's stepkid, when I first had her for the first year, we went out to go running in the dark and she sprinted ahead to show off and she fell and she broke her arm. And I was like, why would I take her out in the middle of the night to go for a jog? I mean, again, those are like little things that you forget, like those are things that I panicked and worried about. What happens when she injures herself? And then she went and injured herself. And what do? You take her to the hospital, she gets fixed, you pay the bills, then you wait for the next thing. So it's almost like you have to release that. You have to like, all right, things are going to happen and you're going to get through it. But in your mind, at the time, it feels like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to handle any of this. Somehow you figure out a way to get through it every year, every growth step. But was it something I particularly thought I could be good at?
I mean, just to add to that, I'm looking at a report from 2017. It says, parents save up. It costs this much to raise a kid. The estimated cost, this is coming from the Department of Agriculture, the estimated cost of raising a child
it's going to hurt.
From birth through age 17 is $233,610, or as much as almost $14,000 annually, a bit more expensive in urban parts of the country and a bit less in rural. So, a lot of people would say that's conservative. I just to rant a little bit. I'm wearing this parody.com BR. That's Brazil. I got this in Brazil when I was dating my ex-fiance, right? And I'll tell you right now, because I'm that dude you're talking about. My buddy. In fact, the same buddy at the IMF, we always talk about this. He's like, you're going to be that guy, the same guy you described. Well, he didn't say that, but he said the same thing you said. He said, one of the main reasons I got married is I didn't want to be that guy at the bar, that old guy at the bar, hitting on young women, etc. Not that people go to bars anymore, but they still do. And over as the years have progressed, I've sort of been that. My problem is people think I'm either dating someone like constantly or, constantly whoring around. And more, especially because of my strong views on marriage, what I typically do is I enter a relationship that's fairly long term and then I'll go into another one. But, not something like just constant, what do you call them? Not the overnights, but what do you call them? The one night
See, I
stands.
use one night stand.
Yeah, I don't constantly do that. Sometimes I do that, but often it's
Serial monogamist, I think they call me.
serial monogamous. But
Monogamist means you have like short relationships over and over and over again. So
thank you for those who miss him mansplaining. No, but if you want to get,
I'm just saying what people call me, or they come up with terms, for whatever. So,
but I think that's normal too. I think biologically, this is again, it sounds, these things that sound controversial. I don't know why they are considered controversial, because women are biologically designed to get pregnant for 9 months. Guys are biologically designed to just be popping and impregnating women constantly. They're not designed to wait 9 months while she's pregnant. So the cultural and the social and the ethical and just the natural trying to live in the world, those are the reasons why people will couple up and people don't run around and get people pregnant and all these different things. But biologically, as just base, dirty, disgusting animals, you're supposed to get a woman pregnant, move on, and then get somebody else pregnant, essentially. But if you want to talk about the reason why I'm ultimately single, was because prior to my long-term engagement, I was firmly on the same path as you in terms of saying, look, I don't want to get a girl pregnant, I don't want to do these things, blah 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 blah. Same path that I'm sort of on now. But then I met her, right? I met her.
right.
I fell deeply in love, went all in, all money, all time, all energy, all love. Nothing mattered more. The world was blue and pink and bright and sunny. And
A dog outside.
yeah. And then, it was just everything was hopeful and everything was, I was ready for the future. So when that ended, after 7 years of relationships, after being engaged and everything else, I shut down emotionally because I didn't want to enter something in my mind and think, what's the point? Because this is going to end, right? I've done this. I was totally against this. We both snuck into each other's back door, right? Because she was anti-relationship. And then once we got together, and I went all in, completely all in, it was difficult to lose that. It's almost like relationship PTSD, and you're like, I never want to get into this again. So that's why I'm sort of surprised that you went through marriage and then you were able to get back on the saddle and say, hell, I'm going to try this again. What did you do mentally to go where you weren't afraid to repeat your past history and you thought that this was somehow going to be different?
No, I was totally petrified because of the way I do it. I definitely was petrified, but I thought it was time again to do it. And I knew the consequences. I knew I have no excuses except, like I said, I am getting older and not younger. And I think I had just gone through like stepping out of stand up again. And I had, sorry, I got to get my dog. My dog is having issues. So I knew that, oops, now I just knocked the camera off. So I knew that there was like major changes going on in my life again. So I think I knocked the camera out. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. No, you're there. You're back.
But now I can't see you for some reason. Oh, there you are. All right. So I can't see myself. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and your video stopped moving.
So I told you
it's back. It's back.
My thing was just that I knew that I had hit that age, that I was stepping out of stand up again. I'd been the house MC at this club called the Hot Comedy Club for 3 years. We did 7 shows a night. I had a bad breakup with my girlfriend at the time. It was involving her wanting marriage and kids, me wanting to get out the door. We lived across the hall from each other during the breakup, so we had apartments across the hall of each other.
Wow.
So it was
like a bad movie script.
bad movie script, and I date another young person that I met at the comedy club. That lasts maybe 6 months to a year. Again, she picked up right away about like what I was all about. Like she knew my deal. She picked up right away, and then I was like, I'll take some time off. I won't date anybody. I'll just like be with myself, try to figure myself out. There was like this long period of time where, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I was involved with like some weird online relationship with some woman in California that I never saw. We would talk all the time, like for a year. And then I actually met my wife on an app. Where
very common, yeah, everybody.
But we kept crossing paths.
Yeah.
And I would see her, and my wife is gorgeous. And I knew something was terribly wrong, right? So you see someone on an app who's really gorgeous, you're like...
Your current or your prior?
No, my wife right now.
Gotcha, okay.
So I see her, and she was using names like Lara, and that was like an ex of mine that I dated. I dated a gymnast from Rutgers named Lara, and she used fake names, and we were crossing paths on all these different dating apps. And I'm just like, something's up here. Like I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So at some point one night, she leaves an urgent title on her, whatever the app was, and she had this like. Now I'm going to be careful because I don't want to, without her permission, I don't want to. But she was just saying like, these are my issues. If you don't like it, too bad. And so I contacted her. I'm like, what is up with you? And she tells me all this stuff. I said, look, you're really beautiful. And I had a feeling that something was going on in your life. Like I had it, because there's no way you should be on these apps. If you look like this, you shouldn't be on these apps. So I knew you were hiding a lot. I was like, so just tell me everything, and I'll tell you everything. And if we can both accept our everythings, I said, when I meet you and if we date, I'll marry you. I have no issues. Like I have no
hesitation
or wait to marriage, I said. So my wife had some severe health issues, and I was like, I can help you out across the board. I said, I just need to know everything about you, everything. And she told me, I'll say 80%. There's some of you just can't predict to know everything about, personality wise. And so that's how it happened. So you asked how, and I was like, I was getting old. I met somebody. I thought I could help. I thought we would get a lot if she could accept all. Because again, at the time, I was a guy who just did stand up. All I did was work and work out. I really didn't have any other interests. Like I don't have like super lot. I like to stay home. I like to work out, and I like to go to work. Like if I'm not doing if we didn't do this today, I would have been freaking out because I have nothing to do. Like I don't have work to do, so I would have been trying to find organizing. I would have been organizing a file cabinet, or I would have been cleaning, or I would have been making a list of things that I need to do. I don't like being sedentary, whatever that is. So if I had the gym, I'd go to the gym. But now my body's all messed up. I got a bad shoulder, got bad hips. So it just felt like it was time. Now, I was in great shape at that point when I met her. I mean, I wasn't having physical issues, but I knew physical issues had to be coming around the corner because my hips were so bad. So I was like, well, this is just a matter of time before, I'm going to have my own health issues. So that's how I came to it. I just was, but it was like everybody says, this woman did this whole comedy bit now. It's fairly funny. She's fairly accurate about, I forget her name, but it's on Netflix. But yeah, today for people who are hermits, or people who have weird views of life, there's somebody out there for you. It's just a matter of how many apps you're willing to go on and how many people you're willing to talk to, because
that's the internet. That's the birth of the internet right there. People, no matter what weird thing you got going on, there's someone out there. There's multiple people out there for you, but now able to connect.
And I wish more people would realize that. I wish people would go out there and sort of. It's hard, like I said, you can't because someone has a phobia of phones, or somebody has a phone for texting, or then they're sort of screwed. But
Yeah.
You know, like you said, there's you can't be lonely. You got to reach out. You know, there's someone out there for you. It's just you're gonna have to check out some apps or something. I mean, this app too. This is way before Tinder and everything else. This was an app called Who's Here.
Wow.
And it was an app that was just a proximity app, and you could pretty much. So when my wife freaks out, I was talking to a bunch of women on there, and one was a Brazilian woman who was actually coming. She was much younger again. She was coming to stay in New York City, and we were going to meet up. And my wife jumped in the middle of that. So that's why there's this whole Brazilian, flip out.
That's interesting, yeah, because I did mention my Brazilian history, and it's weird because it's almost like a glitch in a matrix. I mean, I'm starting to believe that we are simulations and that they just mess up stuff every once in a while. Let me give you this example because I wore this parody thing, which it's an island in Brazil that me and my ex-fiance went to, and I wore it symbolically because my ex is named Juliana, right? And she was like you said, she was like 4 years old. I'm kidding. That's a horrible joke. But she was like half my age, beautiful, gorgeous, super intelligent, could speak, multiple languages. Right now is killing it. I mean, she's doing so well in these organizations. She was always ahead of the game, always ahead of the curve, master's degree, the whole works. And I was floored because I was like, I'm never going to settle down. I met her, all that went out the window. I was like, I'm ready to settle down. So after it ended, the PTSD kicks in, blah, 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 blah. And I never get that closure. I never figure out where, because I was almost better off not knowing. You know that old phrase, is it better to have loved and lost than to have, loved at all? And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't believe that sort of love would exist. And I would have been so cynical. But now I'm like, it exists, so now I'm even more afraid to enter any old random relationship because I'm not going to get to that. And even if I get to that, I put everything into it. If it ends, what's the point? Better just to hang out with the disposable, for a couple of months and then move on to someone else. So anyway, fast forward to this. August 2nd was my ex's birthday, just a few days ago, right? And so I went out with hung out with my friend, and she's sort of like my counselor. I'm like her counselor. Really good friends, close friends, wonderful, beautiful person. Knows the whole story. And I met my ex the same time I met my best friend, who I was hanging out with on August 2nd. But just like you said, my ex-fiance got sort of in the way of. See, I don't want to say too much either, but it sort of interrupted things with my best friend, right? And so, even though she's my counselor now, we sort of met, and I wonder what would have happened if I didn't go off into the Brazilian route. My current best friend, there's history there as well. So I'm hanging out. There's a reason this is going somewhere. So I'm with my best friend, the same person, and it's my ex's birthday. And all of this is forming in my mind. And I'm like thinking about the closing. I don't have closure for this whole thing. So I meet this Brazilian woman, August 2nd, just 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, whenever. Beautiful, intelligent, younger than me, everything else. All that stuff. And so I'm like, this is crazy. In your accent, where are you from? Brazil. So we're talking more and more and more, find out what part. Sao Paulo, Sampa, which is where my ex is from. I'm going, that's so crazy. And in the course of this, obviously I got her name, and her name was Juliana.
No way.
Swear to God. And so I'm like, am I being punked? Am I being pranked? Like I'm not a religious guy or anything like that, but I always comedically joke about coincidences, things that are just wacky, right? And so this was one of those things. Now here's the kicker. The kicker is, I dated my ex for like 7 years, right? And went through all of this emotional drama after the impact of it. The reason she was out in the world again was because she was dating this guy for 7 months. And except his role was my ex's role, and her role was mine. Like, she was the one that was sort of dealing with the aftermath of this relationship and all these other things. And so what happened, and again, this is hot off the press. This is days old. So what's been happening is I've been sort of counseling her of how not to do what I did, how not to emotionally shut down. And I go, you know what this is? I said, this is a glitch in a matrix, jokingly, but I said, this is a glitch in a matrix. I'm here to sort of be there for you, but what you don't realize is you're giving me so much closure because I'm saying to you everything that I sort of didn't get to say to her. I call her fake Juliana, right? Fake Juliana, real Juliana. And I go, we're both here to, and I go, I don't know how this or why this or who this or when this, but this is a rare opportunity. I realize I'm getting a certain closure that I never had the chance to, and hopefully you're going to get a closure now that you wouldn't until who knows how long, because you can learn from me and you're helping me. So it's a beautiful sort of symmetrical glitch in the matrix, and those types of things happen enough where you start to go, what's really going on here? And then you tell me your story, I'm like, come on. It's like a force is bringing all of us together, like a bad episode of Lost.
Well, I say that to you often. That's a whole other thing. Like, and I try to explain, and this goes off into a tangent I don't want to go, but like meeting you and like the possibility of doing what we're doing is, I try to tell my wife like that. She doesn't get it, but I'm like, this is like a 1 in a million meeting that you even have chemistry or somebody else would want to do this, blah blah blah. So let's just leave that there.
Right.
But as far as what you're just talking about, yeah, I went through this whole. Dude, when I went through my breakup, I went through The Secret. I read The Secret, and I started to try to like be more positive. But I went down the rabbit hole.
I did that too. Yeah.
But I went down the rabbit hole, and people don't believe in The Secret. They're like, blah blah blah. But The Secret is almost like, to me,
karma,
positive, or karma 101.
Right.
It's like, this is the way you should. So I would take 80% of that book. Here's the way you should. Here's the way you should live your life besides wishing for stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or trying to attract stuff into your life. So here's 80% of this is the way you should probably live your life if you want to be a good person is The Secret. Because everybody looks at it as this joke book, whatever. So when you go inside The Secret, there's meditation, there's, maybe doing yoga, maybe, pushing harder into these other realms of, parallel, like you said, parallel universes and
the poor person's Scientology.
Well, I mean, I'm not. See,
I know. Keep in mind, I didn't actually read that book, but I started. There's a video. I'm not going to cut you off, but there's a video.
The movie. No, I have nowhere to go, but I'm saying so. Yep. I went deep into this, and at the same time, and again, I don't know if I met a scam, but when I was doing it, I met this woman that all of a sudden we were like so in sync, and then synchronicity started to happen. Dude, really weird shit started to happen in my life. I started to, and this is one of the crazier things is, I'm trying to put my, is I started to, I don't know why it started to happen, but I started to see the number 11 and 1111 all the time.
Oh man, well, that's a thing. I'm not lying. I swear to God. I went through that same thing too. And so I try to intellectualize everything. So I go, well, I'm obviously depressed.
Right. You start thinking.
I'm obviously, so I'm like looking
crazy. Right, I'm looking for stuff.
And there's things, obviously. There's patternicity. There's actual synchronicity, and you start seeing
people coming into your life,
and all that.
Into your life, right?
And there's even movies, right? There's even movies about like the Mandela effect, but the number 11. There's some really bad movies and some other movies coming out about people seeing the number 11 at the same time. So it's not just a one-off. It
was more 1111 than 11. But anyway, supposedly 1111 means transformation. That starting to go through transformation, that you're becoming a different person because you're trying to be more, like you say, karma, like you're trying to have a better karma, better energy, as we call it energy, right? So people believe in God. I don't believe in God. I believe in energy. You put out energy, and whatever energy you put out returns. Now, again, most people totally dismiss. They think it's a joke. Well, I believe in all of this stuff. I don't believe in the secrets so much. I mean, I don't follow this book. I believe you're supposed to live your life a certain way, and I just don't do it. Like, for example, let's go back to being a vegan. Eating the food that I eat, all the food you eat has an energy. So you're putting that energy in your body. So if you're putting a tortured animal into your body, then you're putting bad energy. If you're putting preservatives, if you're putting anything produced by humans who are working under bad conditions, again, the food may have energy coming off it. So again, it can get really crazy, and you can start talk, and you sound like you're talking like a crazy person, but I completely get into all of it. Now, again, I faded out of it. I had to go take care of my dad who had Alzheimer's. I lived with my mom who was fairly toxic. I was in a terrible place. Now, since I've moved to this new place, guess what happens 7 years later? I'm seeing 1111 everywhere again. Now, I only tell my wife this, and now I just told you this, but I don't tell anybody about this.
Right.
I keep it to myself because I don't want people to go, oh, you're crazy again. But it's just happening. Like, it just starts to happen again. So what does it mean? I don't know. I don't know if it means I'm, going through another growth stage or whatever. So, what was the point of all this? It was just like, I believe in energy over everything else. People think The Secret's a joke. I get it. There's so much more to it. The secret is like being grateful for your food, being grateful for the day, breathing. It's like there's simple concepts that you can take, deep breath.
I mean, you bring up so many interesting things. So many interesting things. I want to first just briefly mention some of this. And again, I'm not a numerologist, astrologist. I'm a quiet atheist, okay, or agnostic for people who think that sounds better. I don't say that with any sort of pride. I come from a strong religious background, being raised and everything else, but I question everything. And my point is, I don't believe in anything, but I do. I don't ignore anything that I witness and hear. And me not knowing the significance of anything or the source of anything doesn't change the fact that it's there, right? So I just believe a lot of things like...
When I read this, I'm just like, yes. Yeah. So I feel like a crazy person. But I read this, I'm like, you just put up on the screen here, I read this, I'm like, yes, this is totally me.
You have to look at the movies. There's some movies that talks about this phenomenon, right? And I'm not for or against it. I'm saying, here's what happened. And so, I would see 1111, just like Matt did. Let me read just a little bit of it. The positive characteristics, the 11 is the most intuitive of all numbers. It is instinctual, charismatic, dynamic, and capable when its sights are set on a concrete goal. The 11 is a number associated with faith and physics. Negative characteristics, the 11 can be anxious, shy, stressed, conflicted, and scattered. When focus is not applied toward a goal, the 11 can be extremely self-sabotaging. As a master number, the positive characteristics will turn into obstacles when not understood or used properly. So I had my little Scientology moment with this. That's a whole other topic I'd like to get into. But the last thing I want to mention is you talked about how eating food, talking about veganism, it's like negative energy. And this, again, self-promotion, but this reminds me of an interview I did back in 2016. I went to a DC Veg Fest. And again, Matt and I didn't synchronize any of this, the Brazilian story or anything. We intentionally don't talk to each other on the phone at all. And we don't really text. We just say, ready? So to keep it raw. But what you just said is directly related. You were talking about being vegan and sort of that purity. So I was interviewing this organization here in D.C. They were talking about this. It's sort of a meditation, sort of quasi-religious, whatever you want to call it. and they speak on this. So I'm going to hopefully switch this and see if I can get the audio just to play a minute of this to hear this individual speak on this. Here we have one of the more unique ones.
I want to mention that when we are buying a food, some food, we look for the ingredients, what the ingredients it has, but we forget there's one more important ingredient, and that's our thoughts. In what consciousness am I eating? Am I eating hurriedly? Am I watching some negative news and eating it? Because that affects the way I think. But if I'm taking 10 minutes time off while I'm eating, where I'm thinking or listening to something positive, it helps me for next 3-4 hours to be more calm and peaceful. Yeah.
So it's more about the respect for your environment.
It helps me.
There we go. I should be back, but
yeah, I don't know if it was double play. I don't know if I was screwing you up because I was playing it on my side.
No. You're fine. You're fine. That's me really getting used to these things. But my point is, it's sort of this is that there's a difference between how people apply what they see and hear to sort of the answers of what these things mean. Like I would even argue, if you think about like the Big Bang, if I was a super religious person, I could say, and I was a little more open to certain things, I could easily say, well, God did the Big Bang. God snapped his finger like Thanos in Infinity. Well, I shouldn't say anything. Spoiler alert. And then boom, Big Bang, right? There really doesn't have to be a conflict in your belief. My point is how you take data and everything else and process it is completely open to sometimes opinion and interpretation, and needs to be backed up by certain things. For me, though, I like science, I like facts, I like those types of things, and to inform me rather than just go, someone told me this. But again, whatever someone's belief, you can apply these things to different phenomenon, the same phenomenon, without arguing about it. And that sort of gets into Democrats and Republicans and everything else. You can take this data and then you can go, well, I'm for this and I'm for this. But just if you focus more on the data and go, can we agree that this sort of happened? And then we can have a different opinion on how and why. To me, that's sort of a path forward in politics, in everything, in relationships. Agree on the data. Don't argue about wants and needs and desires. Have them, but have your base foundation. And if we can't get beyond that, then we're always going to be in this sort of cycle of I'm not this and you're for this, which is not the way I think we should go.
I think I just want to step back into, again, the 11/11 phenomenon. Reading that just like brings me back, and like again, so I've moved. I'm in a better space. My dad passed. My mother is now out of my life. I'm in a beautiful home. I am holding my beautiful dog. I'm seeing 11/11. So I don't know if I'm going through another transformation. I mean, this dog is in my life now, and it definitely keeps me centered. When you do stand-up comedy, you pretty much are looking for, like, for me, looking for this negative emotion all the time because that's what you sell on stage, because every time you go up and you do a bit that's, like, negative and you can sell it and you can bring that emotion back, you can sell the bit. And that's what I stepped into. So if I went back to stand-up, I would really like to try to go in a different direction, in a more positive direction. I just don't know if I can write comedy I don't know, like I said, just the whole D.M.V thing. I mean, I'd have to do that voice that I was doing. I'd have to make it some way positive, in some way. How did I keep myself positive in that really negative situation? How did I, I've got to find a new direction to do stand-up, because when I did stand-up, and I'm not Robin Williams, but when I was at the Hot Comedy Club and I was doing 7 shows a night, 6 nights a week, there's definitely highs and highs, and when you leave, there's lows and lows, and you can see, wow, this could amplify. If you got more famous and you got more money and you got more attention, the highs might get even higher, and the lows might get even lower, and then you'd have to self-medicate in some way. So it definitely was worrisome. But I would say that most of my life, and I don't know who to blame this on, but I definitely know that I was negative, and I could get lost in the negative, and I could elaborate on the negative, and I could and my brain could really work on the negative and bring more, scenarios that you wouldn't even believe. You'd just be sitting there, thinking about the negative. So that's why when The Secret came in, and I realized, like, wow, I don't, because I was like, prayer before food. So stupid. Why would you do that? Well, if you just sort of take away, it's not prayer. You're just having a positive thought about having this meal and thanking whatever brought this meal to you. You're not praying so much to a God. You're just saying, oh, I'm grateful and thankful for this meal and whoever prepared it and however it arrived here. And now I'm going to enjoy it. Just like that guy in the video said, you're trying to get yourself in a state of appreciation while you eat this food rather than watching horrible news or being in a horrible, and I people always say, oh gosh, well, what about if you're in prison or what if you have cancer? Well, my suggestion would be there is to meditate and to get into the most positive state you can be wherever you are. I obviously don't think it's the answer. You're not gonna secret your way out of prison. You're not gonna secret your way out of cancer. But there are better ways to cope with whatever you're coping with. So again, a lot of people think that The Secret is this unbelievable joke. And I'm not saying it's humorous to some, but I think there's so much good in that book. If you picked it up and said, oh, I'm going to go deeper into this. This seems a little superficial. I'm going to go deeper. Because it is, like you said, I never thought of karma. Well, I always said it's positive psychology 101. But karma 101 is probably shorter and maybe easier for people to understand.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about it, again, these are different, I don't want to say just interpretations or opinions, but different ways we process things. Like I know a lot of people who aren't religious at all, and yet they're supportive of my mind just went blank. Not Kama Sutra, but
your mind's is your mind always on sex?
No. I take a break and I eat. So. Unless it's like watching 9.5 Weeks, and then I'm actually doing both at the same time. In any case, no. But what's it's not really a religion, but Buddhism. Yeah,
Buddhism is a religion.
No.
Yes.
Wait, what is it? Is it Buddhism? I think that's it. It's something so basic. My mind just went dead. But they follow those. They're not really traditional religion. It's not a traditional religion, if you want to call it that. It's more of a way of living positively, right? And so people may use that, or they might use karma or whatever, but we all have our different pathways to this. To me, it's almost like fourth dimensional, right? I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into quantum mechanics, but
that's what I'm saying. If you're a science guy, if you are science-based, and I say to you, energy attracts energy, you should be like, yeah, I get it. And that should be the end of the conversation. Like if you're, because I'm more of a science guy. We're similar in many ways, but I'm more of a science guy. Everything has to be, give me the scientific basis of what you're talking about. So if you're a science guy, I just say energy attracts energy. And if you go into the definition of energy, I can't do it now, but it's basically what, again, The Secret is based around. I don't want to do this. I don't want to.
I know.
Because again,
I
I'll
know.
be preaching. If I do the definition of energy, it'll sound like I'm preaching this book. So I'm not going to. But again, the Secret to me is more science based, and basically it says the energy you put out is the energy you'll attract, and it's a very simple concept. So again, if you're science, people always ask me, "Are you religious?" I'm like, "No, I'm more science based." So do you believe in God? No, I believe in good. I believe in good energy. If you put good energy out, good energy is going to come back. That it's a very simple scientific concept.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, there's this movie that I watched. I'm putting it up now. What the bleep do we know? Years ago, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and it, again, I'm not afraid, but I'm hesitant to talk about these things because I'm not like a nut, okay? But I do. Yeah, well, you're a nut, but I appreciate I appreciate collecting information and then extrapolating from that, right? Rather than just saying something is all stupid. And like I said, to me, this is sort of commenting on what you were talking about, which is energy versus energy. And someone might say karma. Someone might say the secret. Someone might say, what the bleep do we know? But from a science-based guy, I have real support for these types of things. Quantum mechanics, okay? Quantum mechanics, for people who don't know, and I think a lot of people know now, it's magic, okay? Let's just talk it down. It's scientifically proven magic. Something that Einstein was talking about, he was saying it's a spooky phenomenon. That's how Einstein called it. He didn't say it was fake. He was like, I don't understand this. And there's so much I could talk about that. But things on these sort of almost fourth dimensional planes of matter being able to go faster than the speed of light, which it shouldn't, or even gravity, trying to come up with the theory of everything, connecting gravity with the theory of relativity. All of these fourth dimensional things, as I call it, that's not what they call it, appear in that sort of realm, and where quantum mechanics does these strange things. To me, I see this in my life, and again, I'm not a nut. Okay, I'm just saying that old phrase, when you give someone $5, you get $10 back. I've done that. I've done that just like here, not thinking I'm ever going to get this thing back, and somehow I'll find $20 on the ground, right? And when I see stuff like that, I go, okay, that could be a coincidence, but my higher me goes, a lot of coincidences are probably somehow connected to this energy. And when I say that, it sounds crazy, but when you look into the science of quantum mechanics, you start opening things up, like parallel universes, multiverses, everything else. You start seeing these weird things where an atom that is sitting here, in DC, and an atom that is in a universe, and you split that atom in DC, that atom in the universe immediately splits too. They're somehow magically connected, scientifically verifiable. They're somehow connected, but if they're somehow sending the information, it's going faster than the speed of light. If they're somehow connected by some invisible bond, no matter how many miles away they are, that's unimaginable unless you go, F it. There's sort of like a fourth dimensional connection that we don't understand, but it's there. And this is not kooky science. This is not kooky magic. Someone's going to call it magic. Someone's going to call it numerology. Someone's going to call it whatever. And they could be completely right, completely wrong, or get 10% right, 80% right. But I think a lot of this sort of speaks to that layer. And you talk about even witches. I know several people who are like, I'm a witch. And they're not flying around on broomsticks, but they're like, I think of positive thoughts. I do what I think bring good energy into and you go, all these people are talking about the same thing to varying different degrees that could be measurable and scientifically real.
Well, it's fucking Star Wars, first of all. I mean, that's basically, everybody who likes Star Wars, that's basically the secret, except you're actually moving shit with your mind. You become so forced, you understand that if you use your brain, so there's a dark side, and that's the other thing that's fascinating about the secret and it be positive energy. Well, it works on the dark side too. If you are a fucking vicious, mean, selfish person, there's a good chance you can be highly successful. So it doesn't matter what energy you choose, you're going to be. I'd actually believe the dark side is probably easier for success than it is the lighter side. So again, if people ever have issue, I would just say, look, Star Wars. If you don't get it, if you fucking like Star Wars, then that's basically, the secret, or that's positive energy, or that's I hate to tell you that's what it is, and it's because some people think, oh, you should just think, you think things into existence, whatever. Well, you can also do it on the dark side. You can be very, very successful using dark energy. I actually think it's much easier to do via the dark side than the light side.
And it's funny how I'm bringing it up on screen how the Force was described. Okay, and out of context, we sound like complete nuts, but
absolutely, no doubt about it. Yes, I agree.
But again, I'm not trying to speak to nuts. I'm trying to speak to that tiny portion of humanity that has critical thought and actually listens. I just offended everybody, but
except for me, because I wasn't really listening.
Yeah,
I was reading this. I'm reading what you brought up on the screen.
Yeah, and again, this speaks directly. You mentioned the Force, and this speaks directly to what you're saying. Listen, this is from Forbes, from the article "Star Wars: The Last Jedi Finally Explains the Force," and in the New Hope, before we get to the Last Jedi, he says, Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together." So that was vague as it breaks down, but when we get to the Last Jedi, I guess, it says, Obi-Wan's vagueness leaves his words open to interpretation by us, the audience. That might be deliberate, as Star Wars creator George Lucas originally intended, this is what you just said, for the Force to be a spiritual phenomenon, to be simply mystical or magical. We could stop there, but not only is that deeply unsatisfying, it's contradicted by the phrase energy field, which implies a scientific explanation. That's exactly what we're talking about. And then, of course, it gets into what is said in other incarnations. I don't want to go all into it, but I do want to say what it says in The Last Jedi and give everybody the opportunity to read this on their own. But what it says in The Last Jedi is, it's the energy between all things, a tension, a balance that binds the universe together. The islands, birds, death and decay, that feeds new life. Warm, cold, peace, violence. And then it goes in deeper from Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. I can just go on. My point is, we weren't aware of this article prior, so we're not thinking crazy thoughts. This is something that and it's hinting at George Lucas thought about in creating this fictional story to sort of explain some things, and a lot of people have thought about, and people writing about the Force and breaking it down and connecting it to science and the theory of relativity. It's all there, and I think people need to not be afraid to think, which is much different than answering things that you don't know, but to think about the things you don't know and try to put them in a bigger construct.
And again, if I can make it political, because well, it goes back to
everything.
It goes back to how we met and what we felt, right? So if we want to go back to Bernie Sanders, Trump, we knew that there was an energy behind Trump. We felt it's fucking like Star Wars,
right?
We felt the force of Trump. We knew a very good chance that he was going to be elected. We just felt that we knew, and then Bernie was the light side, and we felt the energy when you were in those circles, when you were with people who are truly Bernie supporters. The energy was just pure. There wasn't no right
or wrong. It was like you said. It was a pure and sort of.
Well, there was no disturbance. There was no disturbance. There was nothing that I had ever experienced before where I could just go,
look, there's disturbance in the Force.
But just like you would just look at the other person and be like, yeah,
right,
yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. It's a little expression, but like right. I'm with you. I'm right on board. I probably think 99% the way you do, which is But we also knew people are not looking at the dark side. They don't understand the power of that dark side. Everybody's like, "Oh no, it could never happen." I'm like, why couldn't it? It's the power. Go watch Star Wars. How do you not see? Darth Vader was actually in control and destroying the whole universe. How do you not see that we're in big trouble? And that if we don't team together, if we don't get together, we're doomed. We're all doomed. And that's exactly what happened. And I feel like right now, this is a scene out of Star Wars. We're like broadcasting out of, caves and stuff, and trying to mount the rebellion again. And it really doesn't look like we have any shot unless some Jedi comes out.
I
should wear a cloak. I should wear a cloak like I should wear my Luke Skywalker outfit while I do this broadcast.
But
I look just like him. I got the long beard. I'm frazzled. I'm probably not believing anymore that it's going to happen. We should have never done. I haven't seen the ending of The Last Jedi, so I have to watch the rest to understand. But obviously, Luke was no longer believing in the Force, and then a lot of drama there.
Well, you got to see it. I won't.
Yeah, don't ruin it. I got to finish the last 30 minutes or something like that, so I know what the hell I'm talking about with this Star Wars comparison.
Yeah, but Darth Vader is the father. In any case, well, in my infamous Cry Me a River, my last Jillian Testament, I only want to say this is you talk about forces, and this is something I mentioned, and that I think everybody who's followed the 2016 election in the world has mentioned at this point, which was the sort of force of Bernie versus Trump. And my statement, I'm paraphrasing slightly, was that you don't throw a Hillary at a Trump. You throw a Bernie at a Trump, because it was fighting sort of fire with that fire, right? And Hillary represented not the opposing energy. It wasn't an imbalance. That was sort of like two people coming from different perspectives on the same side, rather than a counter to that energy. Forget about good and bad and all that.
I think my quote was, you have to beat a greater evil with a greater good. And she wasn't the greater good. You know what I'm saying? So he was the greater evil. You can't just bring in a mediocre good. It's not going to work.
They messed up. Yeah.
You need a greater good, but no one's going to listen to that little statement. Like,
right. It has nothing to do with money and the politics of money.
Well, people just weren't willing to accept that Hillary Clinton was not the greater good. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. They didn't realize the force they were against. It was a very difficult time. You couldn't convince many people of what was about to occur. Urgency.
People forget this. I mean, not forget this, but it brings up an important thing you said. People couldn't wrap their head around it, but there was a very real and practical reason people couldn't wrap their head around it, because prior to the crazy force breaker, if you want to call it, of Trump and Bernie, keep in mind, these are two wacky off-script characters. If neither Trump, two lightning bolts had to happen. Two quantum events had to happen. Bernie and Trump. One would have been enough. We had two glitches in the matrix. So take them out of the picture. They don't exist. What would have happened? People would not have realized that there was any other possibility. People will probably maybe even argue this, but before Trump and Bernie, it was completely normal to think Hillary's perfect, great, established. Hillary, I know Clinton name, she's a woman, first woman, great, good. And who we're going to run against her? Oh, Jeb Bush, obviously, great, solid, rigid. Bill Bush's son, and the father. I mean, everything made sense, and no one would have ever thought that they weren't ideal. The people might have criticized them, but they would never have thought, we can go a completely different route. Trump comes along, little Marco this, whatever, what was it, Sleepy Ted, all these names destroyed the Republicans.
Low energy. Lying Ted, low energy Bush.
Bernie comes along and it's like, wait a minute, all of this Democratic nonsense is ridiculous, and you had two quantum events that never should have happened where both the Democrats and Republicans said, wait a minute, this is no longer normal. I can't wrap my head around them anymore. There's another option. That was an unimaginable thing that happened in 2016. Completely unexpected.
But also the thing that the great twist, the great twist in this movie that is Trump and Bernie was the realization that there was no way they were ever going to let Bernie win.
Yeah.
And again, that's the whole hacking into the DNC, and we realized there was no way. So, and again, Bernie did change the game, right? No outside financing. He was self-financing through small donations. I don't think that's ever been done before. And then we're like, whoa, we're on and everything that I live streamed, I'm like, I don't think there's any chance that they're going to let this happen. I don't know how they'll stop it, but that's why they were never panicked. They were not panicked for the powers that be were like, okay, he's going to make her run for presidency a little bit more difficult, but he's not going to be in our way. We're going to, he's going to have to eventually give up because we're not going to let him win. There's no chance. It's not going to happen. So the big twist that is never discussed anymore is that this was long decided by the powers that be, and Bernie's knees were swept out long before he even started his campaign, and they already knew what they were doing, and it's not talked about. All we talk about is the Russians, but we never talk about how they hacked into the DNC and what horrible things they found behind the DNC, which, trust me, in 2020, that's exactly what's going to happen again. It's going to be the same story again, is they're going to bring up the fact that the DNC was hacked and that the DNC is dirty, and it's so anti-establishment. It's so easily anti-establishment for Trump to say, look how the media has attacked me. Look how the CIA or the FBI, they've all attacked me. He'll be able to just run that anti-establishment more than he did the first time, and it's going to help him. So that was the big twist, was the fact that Bernie never had a chance, and we were all sort of fools to donate and to work. And how do you go back? And you can make two decisions, right? You can drop out, or you can come back twice or three times as hard in the fall of this election. I'm not sensing anything because I'm not as involved as I should be, so I don't know whether we're going to come back this fall and make some headway. Netroots just had a conference where supposedly, again, we're clashing already with the message of the party, but I'm not really sure how it's going to play. I don't have any. Before I could tell you that I knew what was going to happen, I had a finger on the pulse, but at this point, I have no idea. I mean, I just watch every once in a while. I'll watch a little MSNBC or I'll catch a little news. But yeah, the Bernie Sanders revolution was doomed from the start. Though let's hope that he put the idea of financing your own campaign, that looks really good, because that can really juxtapose yourself, if that's the right word, against your candidate. So if you're going to primary somebody and you try to raise your own funds, then you can say, look, this guy's bought out, it's true, what the DNC did, we're going to do it differently, and you quickly, differentiate yourself from your normal candidate right there. I am self-financed. I am getting just small donations. I'm not taking any, big donations, and that's the way I'm financing my campaign. That's probably a good way to start if you want to win a primary. From there, maybe adopt most of Bernie's, campaign ideas or whatever his platform was. That'd be number 2. And reinvigorate and start all over again. I don't know how many. I'm curious to see how many people are willing to go back and give their heart and soul again. It's like you said. You want to take it full circle, Curtis. It's like you saying I'm afraid to go back because I don't want my heart broken. I mean, you basically said I had my heart broken. I never thought it was possible. Got my heart broken. Do I want to go through that again?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this campaign. Do you want your heart broken again? Because you know. Forget about 2020. You just know that they're going to try to break our hearts again. They're going to try to break our will. They're going to try to keep us in line. They're going to try to tell us to tone it down. They're going to belittle us. They're going to speak down to us. Are you ready for that fight again? I mean, I would say most of the people that I've met in the movement are not there anymore. So I mean, this is a scary Star Wars time where I don't know if we can come back and get that same energy. We have a theme going, that we once had. I just don't. Yeah. So it's not up to me. It's up to the youth. I always say it's up to the youth. I'm too old. I actually my kid was playing Fortnite, and Fortnite's like the big thing with the kids. So she was playing on her phone, which is weird. She's an 18-year-old girl, and I was like, oh, I'll play Fortnite with you, right? So I go to the App Store and I try to download Fortnite. And it tells me that my phone is too old for Fortnite.
How?
I have iPhone 6. Anything above an iPhone 6, you can go ahead and play Fortnite. But if you're still holding on to an iPhone 6, we're sorry.
Yeah, well, that is a couple of generations.
But they might as well just said, look,
you're
53 years old. You don't need to be playing Fortnite. So just put the phone down.
And they always talk about how the power of an iPhone is greater than, what was used on, what was it, the Apollo space mission. So it's funny how underpowered some of these things are for modern things. It's a fairly new phone. I know tons of people have iPhone 6s. But going back to your Bernie thing, I thought it'd be fun to take a peek at sort of what people are saying online about Bernie. Looking at some public posts here, no private posts. And I don't know who these people are, but just some random, completely random, not partisan at all. I want to see some of the tenor, whatever you call it, about Bernie. One person says, this is 4 hours ago, on politics, I will support Bernie Sanders in 2020 if he campaigns on $0 corporate donations, federal job guarantee, single payer, and student debt relief. Those 3 policies alone with his economic team are enough for me to throw my little hat in the ring for Bernie. And it goes on and on and on. Just scrolling down. Still pertinent today, before Facebook messed with the algorithms and trolls distracted our efforts. As activists, we should make every attempt to live in truth. Bernie Sanders says himself, it looks like Michigan is ready to make history this Tuesday by voting for El Sayed to be its next governor. Let's do everything we can in the next few days to create a historic victory. ABC talks about him stooping in Michigan. Somebody says...
Stumping.
Stumping. What did I say?
Stooping.
Oh, I said stooping? How dare you stump to his level? Catherine says, just a reminder of where Sanders is really coming from. Over decades in Congress, he could have spent some serious time in his state having town halls to inform his constituents about what controls were and were not. He could have educated and led his constituents to accept real background checks. I hate these words like constituents because it's one of those words you get to and you're like, I'm not even sure I can read. I hope I can read. Let's find out. Constituents. Nailed it. To accept real background checks to keep felons from getting guns. He could have supported action to force gun manufacturers to cut off dealers who were selling to criminals. Or he could have held rallies around the country campaigning for reputable gun owners to boycott such dealers and firms who enable them. On and on. He could have raised against the manufacturer, but he did none of those things because it would have been hard work. Okay, so good. We have somebody who's not pro Bernie, and who's critical. I mean, so what do you say to people like that? What do you?
Well, usually when I see anybody doing anything on Facebook, I will go to their page. I will see how old they are. I will see what state they live in. I will see what other posts they have made that may or may not make sense. I will see what their political alliances are, whether it's even worthwhile to get, step into that argument. But that is going to be, and is probably the only issue they can pick at with Bernie, right? That's the one thing they can go at. So that's what they choose to do. It's the old, how progressive is he really? Or, this guy, see, it's just a dog. It's a dog that doesn't want to get shot. I have to agree with the dog for right now.
Yeah, well, it's a flawed. Look, gun control is a flawed concept. It's one of these all or nothing things, which I don't know if that'll ever work, especially in this country. Even though, full disclaimer, full stop, it's worked in other countries. I don't want to be defeatist and sort of say, well, this country is just more, batshit crazy than other countries. I just think everything takes time because we're only 400 years old. United States. That's a new country. It feels old, but we're still just like, you take people who can live 100 years old. That's just like right 4 times 4. Really, it's an old country. I mean, it's a young country, not really that old, and so we're babies. We're babies still trying to get and learn. And women could vote. Seems like yesterday they couldn't vote, and slavery. These are all like weeks ago. If you were to sort of look at the youngness of this country, so I think we have a long way to go, and we're still learning. But when you look at gun control, like Iceland has almost no gun violence at all, like 0% every year, less than 1%, 1%, and it's never random violence. It's never shooting. Just strangers in the head. It's like, hey, my brother and I had a fight, right? And they have tons of guns, right? It's a smaller country, but they have a higher percentage of people there that have guns than we do. So it sort of goes to our earlier stream where our country's sick, our culture's sick. And when you really start looking at it, of why things work in some countries and why other things don't, it's because of our country is sick. Because some countries have gotten rid of guns and it's worked successfully. We have Chicago, who has a lot of gun laws, completely doesn't impact anything there. They have horrible violence. And then you have Iceland, which has more guns, and they have virtually zero gun violence. It's our culture. We have a lot more less homogenous population, and all these other things that get in the way. I don't know if there's ever going to be an all or nothing answer, and I think once we sort of accept that, then maybe we can start to make real change. But it's never about gun control. It's right now still about Democrats versus Republicans. I don't like you. I don't like Trump. I don't like, so we're never really talking about it. And so meanwhile, people are getting killed that shouldn't be. People are dead. And it's because we as a young country with our partisan politics and everything else haven't figured out that nothing is more important than making sure my fictional child lives another day. We consider them literally, without being dramatic, collateral damage. They're not important enough in the great scheme of things for us to sort of continue our way of life. And that's a progressive view that people, I think, are going to start to adopt, because who cares about anything else, really, if it can actually protect people.
Well,
and children.
a couple arguments that I would say. I want to do two arguments. One is when people attack Bernie on his gun stance. Well, if you want to eliminate gun violence, maybe again Medicare for all, and more people can get psychological help. Get medication. Whatever that takes. As far as the future is concerned, I am a little concerned now with these 3D printers that you can print your own gun at home. Right. So they just blocked there was a blocking of whatever the software is or the formula. I don't even know how the whole 3D printer works, but you can now 3D print your own gun at home. So if you're upset, I don't know how you print your 3D bullets, and I'm not sure what I don't know what's required. I don't know what the cost is for printing out, and luckily someone like me probably couldn't do it. I don't know. I don't know in the future whether we're going to have some sort of some sort of ray guns or stun guns that'll eliminate the problem. So I'm hoping from both sides. But I think maybe the first way is just to go Medicare for all, and maybe we can get some mental help for some of these people, remove the stigma, get more medical help. If we don't do that, we might have a bigger issue with 3D printers and 3D bullets, and it's going to become a bigger issue than just gun manufacturers. Because again, you're not going to be able to blame it on gun manufacturers at that point. You're going to have to blame it on printers and how good your software is and how much you can afford, how many guns you can print out to arm your gang. We're going to get some really nerdy gangs, I assume. I'm not sure who's going to be able to do with the 3D printing and the 3D bullets, but the world is constantly changing, and that's why, again, when people talk about the Constitution and how it was written, and people get all, high and mighty about the Constitution, I don't think these guys are thinking about 3D printers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a good example of what I was sort of talking about, how we make everything conservative versus progressives, Democrat, Republican, because that's one of those things where you got to go, forget all of that. Because there weren't 3D guns back in the day, you have really two choices to sort of take that we're going to be staunch constitutionalists, or just a very common sense approach, not a progressive approach, not a liberal approach, to interpret the Constitution and see how sort of the base foundation of those views would apply. And you can't really be a staunch constitutionalist to do that. You really have to interpret the Constitution. But there are people going, there is no interpretation. We will not interpret. A gun's a gun, right? No, I'm sorry. That's not smart. That's not intellectual. That's not, again, a progressive. That's just not common sense. It's not. If you are going to be a staunch, Bible thumper, I shouldn't say that, or anything along those lines, right? Then, there would still be slaves. Women would still not be allowed to get out of the kitchen and do things, right? There's all these arguments about different populations, and then you can interpret the Bible and go, well, the reason we don't do that anymore is because of the New Testament. The Old Testament, God was an asshole. I didn't mean to say that. But in the New Testament, he's, roses and unicorns. Okay, well, if you can interpret the Bible as that, well, then why would you take what is typically considered a lesser document, the Constitution, and not interpret that so that it applies? So I'm trying just to be practical.
Well, I can.
You usually have people being both. I'm a staunch constitutionalist and a Bible thumper.
Right, but I can dig the hole much deeper. Yeah. I mean, I completely am.
Religion. What happened to religion and state?
But that's why I, first of all, I admire the Bible for its 2,000 years of success. But again, as far as a document that people follow, I have a little problem with it, and I feel the same way about the Constitution. Now, if you say that, I would say the number of people who would be up in arms is, again, you can run the numbers if you want, but if you said to someone, I'm not really a big believer in the Constitution. Oh my God, that's outrageous. How could you not believe in the U.S. Constitution? Well, because when it was written, guys were wearing wigs, black people were enslaved, and women didn't have the right to vote. So I don't know if we were thinking as clearly as you might think we were at the time. So I know you respect it. It might help because you're a white male who would like to wear a white wig, powdered wig. I don't know. But for me, the Constitution is not a document that I believe should be what we should be following. I think a rewrite is due. I mean, I always try to compare it to this. Would you want to run your computer on the software that was written some 15, 20 years ago? Does that make any sense to you? Would you want to use an iPhone 6 like I am and not be able to play Fortnite? Do you understand
1789.
Do you understand how quickly everything is changing? And for most kids or most young adults, I hate to say kids because I'm 53 and I'm aging myself, would totally understand that argument, right? Completely. Like, would you want to run your iPhone or your Android on software written 10 years ago? Would you like to experience that? Well, how about running a country on a document that was written during the time of slavery and when women had almost zero rights? How about that? How does that grant?
Yeah, I mean, it just from a practical, logical, intelligent standpoint,
right.
These are all critical thinking. These are all the ways you want to consider anything. This is how you would want to process any sort of major decision, any sort of thing impacting large groups of people, large swaths of people, as they say. Large swaths.
We should be on Constitution 1000 at least right now.
We should. Yeah, we should. And the fact that, and when you say you don't believe in the Constitution, you're really saying you prefer to interpret it like a rational, normal person would. These people who are staunch.
No, it's worse than that.
They're really renegade. Explain.
I think that the Constitution itself could be pretty much thrown out, and it's like subscription-based Constitution. I think we need to re-up and rewrite at a certain time every year. Again, I'll go back to my.
Well, we're talking about semantics. Yeah, you're talking about semantics. I mean, look at the top of this Constitution. It says on this page that I'm sending to the screen.
It's painful.
It says United States of America, 1789, and in parentheses it says revised 1992. So it begs the question: how come this thing isn't always revised every year, like you said, a subscription? But I think it's interpretation. I think, again, what you're saying is the idiocy of being a staunch constitutionalist, when obviously to any rational person it would need to adapt and change. I mean, when you say get rid of it, you're saying, okay, don't take this at face value at the very least. You're saying get rid of it, start over. Well, what you start over and create is a constitution. So it's the same thing. It's semantics of saying this is not a static document. This has to be.
And obviously, I don't mean getting rid of it like people would think anarchy. I'm saying, okay,
I know.
you had a platform, you had a Constitution 1.0.
Right.
And now we're moving on to 2.0.
Absolutely.
And then 3.0. And then 4.0. So yeah, it was a sort of okay beginning. And now we're going to, whatever we decide, every 4 years, every year, we're going to add a little bit to the Constitution, if you will, if you still want to call it the Constitution. But again, I think most people under the age of 40 would understand the argument that in today's world, it's not as amendable, and these things have to be changed much quicker. And again, that's the issue I have. And again, we'll go full circle to my experience at the DMV, or how that's going to change, or kids' belief in that elections are rigged, or the whole system is rigged. So we can go back all the way to the DNC. So again, with the Constitution, why is it still in place like that? Is it mental masturbation? Is it that you can throw it to people who are heavily educated and like the whole nuance of interpreting the Constitution and getting into those debates? I would assume that people that are super intelligent beyond constitutional debates are people such as, who do you want to pick? Do you want to pick Elon Musk, or who do you want to pick as your person of the moment who might be thinking outside the box? And I don't even know if we have that many like super geniuses that are trying to actually save the planet and are concerned with nothing but their own welfare. I'm not sure who that person is, that ideal name to drop, but you know what I'm saying. There has to be something better than just sitting there and debating the articles of the Constitution, and that's my issue. To be in love with the Constitution and know at the time how it was written and what was actually going on in America, to me is just, it's one of those things where hard for me to wrap my head around it. And again, for people not to understand that you wouldn't run your computer on software 10 years that you was using 10 years ago. You wouldn't run your phone. I don't know what to say. If that argument doesn't make any sense to me, I can't reach. If I put that argument on the table and that argument doesn't make you go, yeah, then I probably know that the person I'm talking to is long gone. So.
Well, I mean, again, from 1795 to 1992, there were changes made. So that means two things. Okay, that means we have incorporated all the changes that needs to be done for the history of the world. In 1990, we covered it all. Okay, before the age of the internet, before all of this stuff, we're done. 1992 nailed it, or 1991, 1795 nailed it, and then we just tweaked. You see what I'm saying? It's semantics. Obviously, we proved by making all these other amendments that it's not a static document. There's no such thing as being a staunch constitutionalist, because what you're really saying is you firmly believe that the changed Constitution should never be changed again.
But you know what? I'm going to take you to a weird place, because again, this broadcast is going to be weird. But the energy on which the Constitution was first written is some bad motherfucking energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, to sit there and write this document as things were okay in the country while people are enslaved. Right. Women don't have the right to vote, and you're just like, well,
that's some white people stuff.
Yes, here's the white people rules.
Right.
Why don't we just call it the white Constitution?
It's funny you say that, because did you hear about the guy that he was a black guy? I'm not laughing at the incident. I'm laughing at sort of what you're commenting on. A black guy's on a train, and this is in California, I believe, and he has a seizure. And so he passes out, and let me bring this up on the on the screen. And so this white guy here, if you can see him here, he pulls the guy out of the train who has a seizure, puts him on the platform, because he doesn't, and the guy, his pants are down, he's naked. The guy pulls up his pants and everything else, and because he doesn't want to be late getting home. Now, the paramedics had already been called. A black guy films this guy pulling, this guy off the train, dragging him off, and starts recording him and saying, "Why are you pulling him off? This is some white people shit. This is what you do because you can get away with it because you just want to get home." No one else was upset about this. So the white guy realizes that he's being filmed. Let me go ahead and play just a little bit of it. And so he tries to make it look good by saying, "Hey, this guy needs a paramedic." The paramedic had already been called. Everybody was just waiting for them to arrive. He drags the guy off. So let me take a quick look at this. But this is built on, like you said, some some bad mojo, some bad energy.
On the train, and this white boy.
Somebody please hold the door.
Jaw-dropping video.
The energy's so bad it stopped the playing of the video.
This man
you cursed yourself.
an unconscious
You're
person
just summoning bad energy.
ride on
Press
the
that
Metro
button.
Blue Line.
Dude just had a seizure. But this white boy is gonna drag him off the damn so he don't miss his ride.
The voice you hear on the video is this man. He asked us to call him Billion.
Once I finally figured out what was happening, you know, it was real unacceptable.
Billion says the unconscious man had thrown up on the train before collapsing and still had a medical wristband on.
In the top part of his head, he had a hole, but he also had metal staples in his head. You know, looked like he was fresh out the hospital.
Billion claims the drama all started when he heard passengers confronting the man in the suit. He went over to check it out and saw the man on the ground.
I still wasn't aware that the white guy had actually, from what people were saying, he had pulled the person who had passed out from his seat over to the ground.
He says that's when the guy in the suit started dragging the man off the train right in front of him. So he pulled out his phone.
So we all initially responded, you know, telling him to get his hands off on whatever, and the guy's pants fell all the way down, so he was naked. So he stopped for a second, pulled his pants up, laid him out on the ground.
Billion says he feels the man's motivation is clear. He didn't want to be delayed.
What you just say?
There are a lot of people.
Was he wearing no?
The suited man eventually went outside to check on the man.
Bro, are you responsive?
But to Billion, that man had already revealed what his priorities were.
This man's life could very likely be in danger, and you worried about getting home or wherever you headed, as opposed to maybe having to take an extra 20 minutes to allow paramedics to show up.
Now, I do want to point out that train was held right here at the station while they waited for paramedics to arrive. Long Beach Fire did confirm to us earlier this evening that man was taken to a hospital where he was treated for seizures and was last listed in stable condition. Now, we mentioned earlier, Fox 11 first brought this to the attention of Metro officials. They're now launching an investigation, and here's what they had to tell us via statement tonight, saying, quote, Metro is working with our law enforcement partners and investigating an incident at the Metro Blue Line's Wardlow station when an unconscious male was removed from a Blue Line train by another rider. Obviously, this is very disturbing, and we never want to see this on our system. We're getting all the facts, including reviewing the video from the train and the platform, and we'll share more details when they become or when they're available, end quote. We're reporting live in Long Beach tonight. Bill Malugin, Fox 11 News.
So, you're probably listening to it on delay. So, it's funny. It's funny that, not funny, haha, but funny, interesting. When this white guy pulls him off the train, keep in mind, he had, as the guy was described, and he's doing well, he's in stable condition, according to the news report. But he did everything he needed to do. He had a medical tag on his thing, clearly stating that he had this condition, seizures and everything else, physical holes in his head with metal plates. This guy is dragging him off because he wants to get home. That sort of, I don't think, I think you banned me from saying privilege.
It's very relatable because you can basically call that the Constitution train, right?
Right.
So
right.
when people were writing,
I'm here to help.
People were writing the Constitution. They dragged black people and women off the train and then wrote the document. So first thing, guys, the first thing we got to do is we got to drag all the black people and all the women out of this room. Then we can get to writing this document. We don't need any distractions.
But can we talk about?
Let's get the train running.
Can we talk about how awkward? To me, it was so awkward when this rigid, stiff business suit guy drags this, in his mind, expendable trash, right, off onto the side. Yeah, fuck it. So he goes up to him and he starts doing that fake act where he's like, this guy needs a paramedic, right? that's funny in itself, right? In a horrible, dark way. But what was really curious was he's like, hey, bro. Hey, bro. I like when people are nervous or awkward, how quickly they become an expert in, like, UrbanDictionary.com. Hey, bro. Hey, I bet he's never called anyone his bro, not even his biological brother. Okay? All of a sudden, I can speak to the black people. Hey, bro, you okay? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I would, and I'm no better than anybody else, but I'm a black person. I probably would have said, hey, sir, or what's your name? If maybe, hey, man, but maybe I would have said, hey, bro. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using bro. It just seems to be, in his mind, he was like, oh, I got this. I'll show, I'm being filmed. I'll show the world that I'll touch him. I'll gently touch him and wash my hands with sanitizer later, and then I'll call him, hey, bro, you okay? This man needs a paramedic. I mean, and the Oscar goes to, I just thought it was one of the most strange, awkward scenes, but it speaks to your constitutional privilege of that's how they think. We're going to make a constitution, and we're going to make sure we take care of the slaves, and we're covered. Maybe we'll make some amendments, but we covered women, what they need to do based upon what we've told them, and the blacks and all this stuff. Everything's fine, and we're a happy document. No. In this guy's mind, he put him safely on the platform. He can go home. No harm, no foul. And if we need to ratify this later, we will. We'll do it in 1992.
Well, that's why I'm saying, the Constitution needs a reboot, from an energy standpoint, from a historical standpoint.
Yeah.
To tell people you have to accept the Constitution when it was written under similar conditions that other people, again, what's fascinating, if I said that to them and said, well, it was awful nice of you to drag women and black people out of the room if I said that, they would, the person I talked to would be like, how could you, what are you saying? They would defend the Constitution and the fact that it was written on basically the back of black people and women. They were just being mistreated across the board, and they had the nerve to sit there with their, to me, again, maybe I'm a different person, but it's always struck me as quite bizarre that this is okay, and this is a part of a history, and we just can't reboot the Constitution, to have a restart at a place that's, we're not denying our history, and we're not saying, hey, but we're saying, hey, that was really bad. We need to start over again. We need to start fresh and clean with a fresh energy, and we need to move on. Mm-hmm. But, and again, I don't know where I missed.
Well, you're sort of commenting on the statue issue as well, but
I missed the energy part where this guy says bro. But again, what's funny
just
about
when he's
life
just when he's tapping him and he's like, "Are you okay?" You can see his mind working because he's a business leader. He's a thinker, right? So he's like, all I got to do is touch him, say bro, and say he needs a paramedic. And I can't. There's nothing. I can't be racist or anything,
But I'm surprised again in this day and age that more people are getting away with more things, because I would have thought in this day and age more and more people are being recorded without them knowing it, like just audio or video. I mean, if you want to see someone's behavior change, record them. If you want things documented, record it. I mean, again, with all these guys, I think more guys need to be caught talking inappropriately on audio. So guys are like, you know what? I can't do this stuff anymore. I gotta check myself because someone's going to record me. I don't know what it's going to take to have people change their behavior. I only believe that shame is going to be part of it. That's why I said last time we talked about Charlottesville. Record those guys, dox those guys, put those guys saying, you got to shame people now. If I was in a bus accident, just and this isn't completely related, and I didn't record right after the bus accident. Oh gosh, am I still up? Yeah, I'm still up. My wife is trying to call through. So I didn't
it's just frozen.
I didn't. So I didn't record. I didn't record what happened prior. So after the accident, when I was inside the bus, I should have took out my phone and I should have started to record what happened. I thought, oh, that would be bad etiquette. Well, they didn't have me down on the police report. They tried to make it seem like I wasn't in the bus at the time of the accident. So again, I use the word behoove, but I think it's a good idea for people to start thinking about video. I mean, it's weird how video and recording is not an idea.
Behoove you.
Well, sir, let's write this count.
Yes, sir, I shall punish your face repeatedly with my fisticuffs.
Now the blacks, and now that we have the blacks and the wives and the women.
Hello, kind bro, sir.
Have all the blacks and women been dragged out of the room? Let's commence the writing of this fine constitution.
Hear thee, this man requireth a paramedic.
Yo, bro, what's up, man? Yo, I thought I was doing us all a favor, man. I was just dragging a guy off the train, yo. What's up, kid?
Wow, your accent was so accurate. It's like, you know what they call it with the robots? They get into the uncanny valley. They call it the uncanny valley when the robots look too similar to humans. There's a valley where you want it to look fake, where people are comfortable, and as soon as you pass it, people get uncomfortable. Like that new movie Battle Angel or whatever. And so when you cross it, it's too accurate, you freak out. Your accent was too accurate. You have offended me with your lack of satire. You were in black voice. You heard of blackface? You were in black voice.
But I have that issue all the time.
Hey,
I'm
man.
terrible if I hear like a rap song and I'm singing it, or if there's singers that I can if I can do their voice. It's like I have to always be careful because I just got to keep it more like Rick Astley or something. I gotta make sure that I'm just stay as white as I can be. Never gonna give you up.
Well,
never gonna turn you down. I gotta stay in the white zone. I gotta be careful. Robin Williams, I'm sure got away with murder because he had that twinkle in his eye. Like if you don't have a twinkle in your eye and like an elf smirk when you're doing these impersonations, people can go, "Oh, that's racist."
Well, a good example of that is the classic, the insult comedian, who I think
Don Rickles.
He recently passed away, right?
Don Rickles.
Yeah, he was like last year or something.
Yeah. But
great. He wrote such a fine line, right? You could even say people like Joan Rivers or whatever. Such a fine line of being satirical and doing commentary and really offending people. Stern did this, of course, brilliantly with Daniel, whatever his name was, Daniel Stern, I believe. He would bring in the KKK guy and bring in black people and be like, "Hey, this is Big Black, an angry black." And so people who didn't get it were, of course, immediately offended. But people who were sort of critically thinking, whatever, they realized if this guy was racist, he wouldn't be around any of these people. So it's that sort of thing where you can. Sort of play. Just say you're a comedian, and you can do and say whatever you want.
Well, the other thing this isn't completely related, but in defense of Robin Williams, because a lot of people said Robin Williams,
yes, Kramer,
was a joke stealer, and
Kramer,
but I've never had an issue, a Kramer meltdown like that. Matter of fact, normally when I'm on stage and I'm heckled by anybody who's a minority, I'll always be like, "Hey, I'm just a white kid from the suburbs, man. I don't even know how to say," and then they just start cracking up. So I just completely diffuse them, like, I was raised in the suburbs. I have no idea what to say back to you. I don't know what's appropriate, and then they just start cracking up.
May I recommend you utter the variances of Brosa?
I do believe, sir. You should quiet yourself down. Robin Williams. A lot of people rag on Robin Williams only because he was such a fucking talent. They hated on him. Nobody had the energy. Nobody had the acting ability. Nobody had the talent for dialect. So they. But
who were these people who ragged on Robin Williams, especially after his death?
Most comedians really did not like Robin Williams. They would make up shit like, "Oh, he steals tons of jokes."
Okay.
He was so good. It was so good. It just scared the shit out of people because people were like, "I'm never, ever going to be 1% as talented as Robin Williams." Now, I never liked his stand-up. I never liked particularly he's a good actor. What I like about comics is when they're put under the pressure, when they're on live somewhere, and then you really get, they're throwing stuff, and they're hitting it back, and you're just like, oh my God, this guy's brilliant. It's not an act. Yes, you can write down stuff and you can rehearse it, but when you're on the fire, when your foot's to the fire, and you're just going off, and you're just doing, and you're just taking crazy chances. I mean, like if you saw Comic Relief, things like that. I think sometimes he even tried to not be
tone it down a bit, right?
Not to be as so talented. I think there was times where he had to catch him and go, "Oh my God, I'm being too talented right now, and these two are going to be very upset if I continue my antics." Meanwhile, he's a comedian, and the other comedians are like, "Robin, you're being a little bit too funny right now. How are we going to compete with this? There's no chance." You can see it in their eyes.
Yeah, because they start to take on his persona and his mannerisms.
Then now I'm copying Robin. And
there was not to get too far in the rabbit hole, but there was Kevin Hart hosted SNL this season, whatever. I think they ended their season, but he did this scene where he plays like a children's host, like a young children's host, and then he comes back and he plays like the old version of him years later. It's like a PBS show, and it's mildly entertaining because he's climbing upstairs and everything else. And a lot of people were saying that and they weren't angry, but they were like, "Is it me, or does he seem like Eddie Murphy here? And I thought about that. I had to watch it when I saw the comments because I love internet comments, right? They're gold. And I looked at the sketch again, and I go, yeah, I can sort of see this. It was sort of like Mr. Robinson, Eddie Murphy, but he was in one of these sort of classic Eddie Murphy characters, and he was also on Saturday Night Live. There is a point where you sort of go, let me take on some of the characteristics of the king, right? He sort of set the template of how to present this character. So it becomes less of a copy and more of an organic, how do you do these types of skits, right?
Well, again, you can call it an homage.
Yeah.
I would say a couple of things to you is, one is like, even when we text each other and you do a joke, I'm like, oh, it's been done before. Oh, that's hack. I critique your text.
Yeah,
I tell you in text. Like that's what a comic snob I am.
No, but it's beautiful because I send those texts in a very homage kind of way, like intentionally bad and groans and everything else. Yeah, and they're sort of like, look, here's a joke for you, and it's so intentionally bad that it's me tipping the hat at your sort of awareness of that. It's like I love satire, but my lights.
Well, the other thing I would tell you about this, the scary thing about going to do stand-up and doing that stand-up set, is that, I'm so afraid someone will record me now. Like now it's different. If you go on stage and you bomb, or you go on stage and you're doing old jokes that I couldn't even really remember a lot of the punchlines or the setups or the way they went. So I was very scattered, and I'm like, man, if someone records this and puts this up, this is going to be so embarrassing. Now I started to say, oh my God, I got to start writing all new material and just go up fresh. And, if I'm going to bomb, let me bomb with like brand new material. So when I look at that stuff online, I can go, okay, well, that's all new stuff and that all needs to be tweaked. But to look at, to just go up there and try to do all my old jokes that are so painful, and it was such a weird room to do it in. But after I was like, oh my God forbid anybody recorded that or has audio of that. I'm going to be so embarrassed. So, it's so tough to be original. It's always tough to do new stand-up, you're always, like you said, you're always stealing for someone. I don't even know whether I have a good comedy voice. I'm just always critiquing myself. I critique this, I'll watch this, I'll critique. Like I said, the last two shows I watched, and I was just like, all right, I have to figure out, okay, I definitely got to have a notebook so that I can write down notes while you're talking. I was going to say, I got to start doing more. I can do so many different voices, and I gotta start throwing that in the mix. I gotta start taking chances of doing voices and dialects, and that's why I even brought up the things. It's because it's so much harder on call or on demand or on camera. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. When I went to the DMV and I came home after that whole horrible debacle, my wife, I came in and started to do that voice as telling her I just came back, honey, from the registration office, and I sure did have a hard time getting my horse registered.
Now you're doing the black voice again. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I had to. Must be one of the first settlers to come over here to this fine Staten Island and then register my horse. And I was going off, and she was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "This is too funny. I have to record it." And I was like, "No, you can't record it." All of a sudden, I said, "No, I don't want you to record it." So I went outside to get something, and she set up a camera, and I come back in, she goes, "Could you just tell me the story again in that voice?" You know, and so I started doing it again. I'm like, and so I went up and I started doing this. I'm like, "Well, I got my car registered, and I can't believe how long. I must be one of the first settlers to come over here from New Jersey to Staten Island. And oh my gosh, the telegraph was down." And I'm going, and she's like, "Guess what?" She's like, "I just recorded that." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's going to be comedy gold." We play it back. Her phone is broken. There was no audio, so she thought she had caught this moment, and then we're both pissed off. We're just like, "Well, that was a whole waste of." Like, when you do something and you think it's comedy gold and then it doesn't record, you're just like, "Oh my God," because I'm never going to remember exactly what I was saying, because as I'm trying to reduplicate it here, I can't remember all the things I set up as I was going, because she was just laughing at what I was saying, and then I was just building on it, and then I told her, I'm never going to be able to do that, what I just did. It's gone. It's in the wind. Some people can go back and redo that. I'm not one of those people. I'm in the moment, and it's gone forever. So again, hopefully she'll start to, record me and keep it and have the right recording. Hopefully her phone will work. She was working on an old phone and no audio. She finally got to feel what it felt like when you do something and it doesn't record properly. And it's just like, oh, that's gone forever. That little bit is gone. So I mean, it's tough. It's tough to.
Well, people are going to say you need to live in the moment.
It's hard as a comic.
I know.
Having authentic, improvised moments that are actually funny are rare. And also with me, I'm one of those guys. If you hold up a camera, that's why the difference between a guy. You can hold up a camera and he just stays in the moment and he just keeps working and pushing through and doesn't give a shit about that camera. For me, I for some reason, I'm like, no. I've always been the guy that says, don't. Like, I'll be doing something funny. People are like, oh my God, I totally have to record. So I'm like, no, please don't record. And I just come out of character and come out of it. So that's why I'm saying this has to eventually become very comfortable, where we have a chemistry where I'm not afraid to just do. And like I told you, that's why I tell you, there's always fear when you're doing broadcasts like this. We don't do this for a living. This isn't why, people tune. There's no audience. There's no sponsorship. This is just us trying to do something. So there's a fear behind it. There's a lack of freedom behind it. Even when I did that stand-up set, I got scared again. I was scared of failing in front of a bunch of, amateur comics. I was afraid of being hacked. I was afraid of being a parody of myself. So.
I like how you were afraid of being a hack, and yet you led with a DMV joke.
Well, I mean,
that's a payback for grading my text.
Well, the DMV joke, or the premise of the DMV is definitely a hack. But to do the voice of me it was just the technology and how I had to get into that persona of that country guy coming over with his farm or whatever to just get through the day, because I couldn't believe how much time I just wasted and how archaic. And again, you come home and you're just like, there's no way things are ever going to change. If that's the way it just goes to the DMV to get my title, and I'm going to have to wait 3 to 5 days for it to come in the mail when we know they could email it or they could at very least fax it. I'm going to sit here and wait 3 to 5 days, and I don't know if that title is actually coming in the mail. I have no correspondence, no text. Oh yeah, it's coming, or email. Oh no, I'm just going to sit every day. I'm going to go to my mailbox and go, oh, not here yet, babe. So,
well, we're coming up to 3 hours here. I don't know if I'm curious about though your motivation. You sort of snuck over, and this will sort of bring it full circle. how you started off this broadcast with, you just going for some reason to do the stand-up. I mean, can you tell us your sort of, there's got to be a before, a during, and an after, like a brief summary of your mental state of, hey, I'm just going to go and revisit something that was a huge part of my life years ago on this Tuesday or on this Wednesday. And then you went there and take us through that. I mean, did you speak to somebody?
I'm going to have to shoot my whole wad. So I might as well do it on this broadcast.
Okay.
Let me
get a dry towel.
I drive for Uber and Lyft. So I picked up a passenger that was going to do this stand-up routine, and she was doing the stand-up night for the first time. And what I should have done was said, do your act, and I'll do your act right now as you drive there. Like, I'll tell you who I am. I've done stand-up for 20 years professionally. Do your act. I'll critique it. Tell you, I'll laugh at it. I'll tell you what's good, maybe what to cut out. Instead, we just talked, and I felt terrible that I didn't say, hey, and I dropped her off. And I was like, maybe I'll come back. I'll do a set. Maybe I'll come back. I'll do a set. Came back. It felt okay. It felt like it could be fun. I know all the tricks that you have to do. I like it when it's comfortable. That's why I stayed at the Hot Comedy Club, because you basically would write your availabilities, and basically they just said, no, you're the house MC. You're going to work 6 days a week. You're going to MC 3 shows and do 5 shows. I need it that easy. That's why I don't think I'll ever do stand-up again. So it was just an easy, I knew if you call me, sign up. I was going to sign up 2. I was going to go right up. Nobody else is going to sign up 1, 2, because nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to go later. They want to get a feel of the room if there is a room. So I just knew I could just sign up, do my 5 minutes and go. And I wanted to see how it felt, and it felt terrible. It just felt, I don't see myself being able to go back to that world. It is, I listened to Seinfeld because I was trying to listen to some Seinfeld material so I could do his impersonation, and all he has was a thing about the only thing on Apple that you can listen to that's Seinfeld is him talking to some guy about the art of stand-up. And basically what he says, it's work. Just do the work. Like if someone says, how do I become stand-up?
He's always talking about that, though. You can catch him talking about
but I'm just saying,
the art of comedy on coffees and cars, getting drinks or whatever.
I believe that it was us doing the broadcast that happened again because the weather was right and everything fell into place, and then the energy from that coming into the next day of me being high from getting it done, and we had done our broadcast, and the next day the first passenger in my Uber car, the first passenger says, I'm going to do this afternoon comedy show, and it's close by, and I was like, I'm going to go check it out, see how the parking is, see if the parking is bad. If the parking was bad, I probably wouldn't have done it. I walk in, it's this little Irish bar with like an Italian owner. I just thought that was funny. The Italian guy owns this bar. Nobody's in there. I see the list. I start talking to people. I start adding people on Facebook. I'm like, I'll hang out. I hang out. I do the set. But after I did the set, I was just like, I don't know. I just was like, there's no way. I mean, I could run around and try to do sets in New Jersey and see if I can build an act again for what I don't know. But it just, for me, it kicks into the creativity. You start to write notes again. Things that you would ignore comically, you start to write down and go, is that something I can work with? Is that something funny? So
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, what are some things that are sort of percolating in your mind for topics that need to be covered in the future?
Okay, so one of the bits that I've never really worked on. And again, so I'm going to give you all the dynamics. So one trick of comedy is, especially when you're is you take in the room and just things like I told you. So you walk in and you get on stage and go, yeah, this is great. I'm performing in an Irish bar with an Italian owner. That seems bizarre right off the bat, folks. And people laugh because nobody else picked it up. I'm sure he's got a couple of Boondock Saints tied up in the basement. I'm sure that's how I'm sure this isn't even his bar, for God's sake. So you do that, and then they're just like, he's riffing. Well, I'm not riffing. I totally prepared that line in my head before I got on the stage. And then you can make fun of the stage behind you, what's wrong with it, how it really screws up the whole, because most amateur rooms have terrible backdrops. So then you can do something, then people are on your side. But then one of the new jokes that I just wanted to work on, again, is so no one knows me, right? So when somebody brings me on stage, they'll be like, okay, our next comic is Matt Stueck. and then so that's not my name. So I have to address that in a comical way, right? So the bit that I wanted to work on, which I don't have, is the way that I actually started to do comedy, and that was like when teacher would call my name, they would go, "Is Matt Stueck here?" And at first, when you're a student and you're first at school, that probably doesn't trigger you as funny, right? You're just like, "Is Matt Stueck here?
Who are these people? Who are these people stuck in?"
But when you're sitting in class and a teacher's saying Matt Stueck here, usually you're sitting there going, "Oh man, this is going to be a long day. I hope I don't get too embarrassed." And then when you hear, "Is Matt Stueck here?" you're like, "Okay, well, it looks like I'm going to be the guy embarrassed here because I'm going to have to I'm going to have to speak up and tell her that she's saying my name wrong, and everybody's going to laugh." And so when the teacher goes, "Is Matt Stueck here?" and you go, "I guess so," and the class erupts in laughter, you go, "Oh, okay, all right, there's comedy there, all right, okay." So I got to laugh. I survived that incident. So if it happens again, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to have a dialect. I'm going to have an accent. So or maybe I'll get up and spin around. I don't know what I'm going to inflate that. So there's going to be a joke about Matt Stueck here, and how I started comedy was when the teacher said, "Is Matt Stueck here?" and I go, "I guess so," and I got my first laugh. Then I was like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, so now I just have to go home and work on a couple more punchlines and do some new lines to "Is Matt Stueck here?" Like, "Is Matt Stueck here?" "Only if you make it so, teacher." I don't know if you have to sell it even harder, and the laugh's a little bit bigger, or you can stand up and do it. So I haven't decided exactly how I'm going with that, but that would be one of the ideas that I'm playing with. Is Matt Stueck here?
We will. Yeah. So we'll start off our next stream on the origin of some names, last names, future names, good names, bad names. But I would say Howard Stern probably ran into the same sort of challenge.
Yeah, I would say you're there, but I never knew there was a Howard Stern. I definitely knew that there was stand-up comedy, and you knew that's how you could get a laugh, and you knew that's how you could survive the day. And I knew that being funny was probably the best mechanism for surviving because I think more than being beat up, kids are more afraid of being made fun of, because it's much faster, quicker, and it's an everyday thing. You can only get beat up so many times before someone's going to put a stop to it. But if you can be made fun of every day from class to class. So sense of humor was probably much more of a defense mechanism. Now I tried both. I made sure I could fight, and I made sure I could be funny. So I was just defending myself. I was defending myself from being made fun of by others. I just knew that if you were faster and quicker and funnier, people were going to back down. And there was times where I met my matches, and some people would get onto my game and would figure me out. But for the most part, I survived through that. So unfortunately, I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm just saying you learn that being funny will make high school, elementary school, middle school go much easier from day to day. So that's that.
All right, my friend. Let's let me do a nice little sign off here. Hold on.
Will come up to me and say, it happens so often. I walk down the street and someone 20 or 30 or 40 years old will come up to me and say, "You are Mr. Rogers, aren't you?" And then they tell me about growing up with the neighborhood and how they're passing on to the children they know what they found to be important in our television work. Like expressing their feelings through music and art and dance and sports and drama and computers and writing, and invariably we end our little time together with a hug. I'm just so proud of all of you who have grown up with us, and I know how tough it is some days to look with hope and confidence on the months and years ahead. But I would like to tell you what I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are. And what's more, I'm so grateful to you for helping the children in your life to know that you'll do everything you can to keep them safe and to help them express their feelings in ways that will bring healing in many different neighborhoods. It's such a good feeling to know that we're lifelong friends.
Thank you, Nat Stueck. Stueck on you. I'm na 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 na.
This guy setting up every kid for disaster, thinking that the rest of the world is going to treat him like that. And then you walk out the door, you get punched in the mouth, kicked down the stairs, dragged by your ass, ridiculed by teachers, beat by your parents. And then Mr. Rogers comes on and goes, I like you just the way you are. Do you really, TV guy? Oh my God!
Are you really attacking the sanctity of Mr. Rogers?
I can't wait to see you tomorrow, so I can live in your imaginary world. Everybody's
king.
nice to me. Nobody talks to me like you. Nobody. I have nobody except for you, TV guy. Thank you. Thank you for giving me false hope.
Here is what the beloved.
Won't you be my neighbor?
This is what the beloved Mr. Rogers has to say.
That's the real world. In one clip, that's the real world. So you went from a long line of bullshit to the way the world really works, which is just like that. I hope that's real. I hope that's not fabricated. See, even Mr. Rogers. It can't be real.
We bid you all a good night.
Stay strong.
Stay strong, my friends. Ciao.